My mother was being ridiculous when my dad, who makes $1 million a year, bought me a $20 down jacket for the cold weather. She ripped it off me and screamed, "How dare you wear such expensive clothes at your age, looking like a little temptress? What kind of spell have you cast on your father?" She accused my dad of favoritism, claiming he was trying to drive her to her grave. She even spat out, "You're so biased toward this worthless girl. Are you two having an affair?" My father was so enraged he coughed up blood, threw open the window, and jumped from the 10th floor. I followed him down, our skulls shattered, blood gushed out, and we died on the spot. After being reborn, I grabbed my dad before he could jump and flung out what my mother had hidden in the wardrobe. "Mom," I demanded, "when Dad's not home, who are you wearing that lace bra and thong for?" I could see the panic on my mom's face. In my past life, when it was -10 degrees Celsius, I was still wearing my mom's old coat with sleeves and hem so loose they let in the cold. My dad couldn't bear to see it and bought me a down jacket, which sent my mom into a rage. She yelled at me for over an hour. "How do you think we got this house and car? It's all from my scrimping and saving. You can tough out the winter chill. Is it really necessary to be so wasteful? I haven't even bought myself a down jacket. I'm perfectly fine wearing 4 or 5 layers and haven't frozen to death, have I?" Then she pointed at the braised sea bass and congee on the table. "One, fish is so expensive. I wouldn't have bought it if it weren't for you. You get to eat fish while I just have plain congee with soy sauce. See how much your mother loves you. It's freezing out, and I'm washing vegetables in cold water. Do you know why? I'm saving every penny for your dowry, to buy you a place of your own so you can hold your head high when you marry into their family." She made such a compelling case that I started questioning if I was really in the wrong. Do I really not appreciate how hard Mom works? But I'm just so cold. She went ahead and returned the down jacket, completely ignoring both my dad's and my objections. After the return, I got a message from customer service saying they found some personal items in the down jacket and would be sending them back to me. My mom processed the return by directly accessing my Taobao account. I've told her countless times not to touch my phone, but she just doesn't take it seriously. I was fuming, but when I opened the return package, my jaw dropped. Tucked inside my down jacket were a lace bra and a thong. When I told Mom, she quickly pulled me aside and said it was a surprise she'd planned for Dad, begging me not to tell him. "You're too young to understand. But your father is seeing another woman. When men get rich, they turn rotten. If I stop trying, you'll end up fatherless. When that happens, everyone will laugh at you." I was so terrified I didn't dare bring it up with Dad. I started avoiding Dad whenever I saw him, thinking my downcast mood was because of the down jacket. Dad quietly bought me another one a few days later to comfort me. "I'm not very capable, and I can't give you the finest things, but whatever you need or want, you must tell your dad. I'll do everything in my power to make my good daughter's wishes come true." Touched yet anxious, I secretly wore it on the day of our monthly exam. My mom, who came to bring me lunch, unexpectedly saw me in it, right in front of my teachers and classmates. She ripped the jacket off me and scolded, "How can you wear such expensive clothes at your age without feeling ashamed? I work myself to the bone every day to put food on the table, clothes on your back, and send you to school. Is this how you repay me?" Dad rushed over to intervene, but Mom grabbed him by the collar, furious. "I only give you $800 a month for living expenses, after your Metro card and cigarettes. Where did you get the money to buy her another down jacket?" Dad stammered that he'd saved up for my down jacket by quitting smoking. Mom's eyes widened in disbelief. "Oh great, you bastard, saving money for your daughter but not for me." Suddenly, Mom slapped Dad hard across the face, then struck me as well. "Look at this hussy, dressed like some seductress. God knows what nonsense you've been whispering to your father." I begged my mother through tears to stop. "Mom, it's just a winter coat. Stop making up stories." She was wailing and carrying on, shouting at the top of her lungs while dragging the homeroom teacher from one staff member to another. "I'm just not good enough to keep my husband's heart. He always takes our daughter's side, never mine. Your father is driving me to my grave. I gave up my career to become a full-time homemaker, all to raise you properly and take care of this family. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed, and what do I have to show for it in the end?" She plopped down on the ground crying, even pointed at my father's face and said, "You're so biased towards this worthless girl. Are you having an affair with her?" My father was so furious he spat up blood on the spot. "Maggie, have you lost your damn mind? How could you say such a thing? She's my daughter." No matter how much my father tried to explain, the looks people gave us, father and daughter, turned strange. Words can be vicious, especially for an honest man like my father. In a fit of rage, he threw open the window and jumped from the 10th floor, brains splattered everywhere, blood gushing like a fountain. 2. My mother showed not an ounce of grief. Instead she cursed at his corpse. "You useless man, good riddance." I pushed my mother away. "Mom, How could you say something like that? My mother smoothed her hair and adjusted her collar, saying calmly, and you're the one who got your father killed. Why don't you just go die too? In a fit of rage, I jumped down after them, just like my dad. He died on the spot. It wasn't until my soul was floating in the air that I found out the very next day. My mom put on lace lingerie and a thong and slept with the delivery guy from downstairs. She's the real slut, after being reborn. I returned to the day my mom forced me to return the item. What are you standing there for? Why haven't you returned the Serenity yet? Who do you think I'm scrimping and saving and working myself to the bone for? It's all for you. I let out a cold laugh and opened one of Mom's closets. It was packed with brand new clothes of hers. You buy new clothes but refuse to wear them. You'd rather let them sit until they're outdated, damaged, or moth-eaten. Then patch them up before you'll finally put them on, and only when they're completely unwearable do you hand them down to me. How is this supposed to be for my own good? We didn't save a damn cent. This is what my mom calls frugality. It made me too ashamed to even buy a bottle of water or a skewer of grilled meat when I was with my classmates, leaving me with deep-seated insecurity. Yet, the house we live in is worth $5 million, and the car is worth $1 million. Besides, my mom's own spending isn't exactly cheap either. Mom, your coats cost over $1,000 each. How is a 150 yuan down jacket from Dad considered extravagant? My mom immediately retorted, buying quality coats lasts longer, so it actually saves money in the long run. So by your logic, I should have bought the $1,500 down jacket instead of the $150 one. My mother was momentarily speechless. And my father couldn't help but chuckle, earning him a glare from her. You're still too young to understand. I'm just trying to save money for your future home. That just made me even angrier. My mom lost 36,000 yuan in an online scam, and I spent the whole day comforting her, but then she turned around and blamed me. If I weren't saving up for your down payment, would I have fallen for this scam? It left me feeling guilty for ages. I even started eating less rice to save money as some sort of penance. Only now do I realize it was all my mother's lies. Mom, you kept saying you were saving to buy me a home, so why did you give Uncle 200,000 from the housing fund? My father was stunned. What 200,000? Didn't you claim it was lost in P2P investments? After my death, with my uncle's help, my mother caused scenes at the school and falsely accused them of driving my father and me to suicide. She received 400,000 yuan in compensation, 300,000 of which she gave to my uncle to build a villa back in his hometown. That's when I found out she had already given him 200,000 yuan earlier to help him buy a house. All that time she'd been going on about saving up to buy a house. It was never for me, it was for her brother. My mother sat on the sofa, picked up her teacup, took a sip, crossed her legs, and said calmly, he's my own brother, isn't investing in family safer than some P2P scheme? My father was so furious he could barely form words. When my sister had cancer and I sent 8,000 for her surgery, you threatened divorce, but for your brother 50,000 for his first apartment, 100,000 for the second, and you secretly gave him 200,000 for the third. Maggie, you've crossed the line. My father's eyes were welling up, and I was on the verge of tears too. How could there be such a shameless woman in this world, constantly exploiting and draining her own husband and daughter, just to be good to her brother, who exactly are her closest family? My mom couldn't come up with a good excuse, so she shifted the blame onto me. That's beside the point. Girls should be raised frugally. We can't let her develop wasteful habits from a young age. Even my usually mild-mannered dad couldn't take it anymore. How is 150 yuan considered spoiling her? Maggie, I can tolerate you bullying me, but don't you dare lay a finger on my daughter. Jules, I'm your wife. What's yours is mine, and I'll spend our money however I please. It's none of your business. Dad staggered, trembling with such rage that he could barely stand. I rushed to steady him. Mom let out a scornful snort. Even if it's a 50 yuan down jacket instead of 150, no one is allowed to buy it without my approval. Maggie is extremely controlling. My dad loves steamed buns, but she insists they're unhealthy and won't let him eat them. She'd buy huge quantities of peanuts, beans, flour, and rice, all of which would go moldy, then force my dad and me to eat them to avoid waste. To save $7, she made my dad and me walk 5 kilometers home with her on a rainy winter night. Right or wrong, she always has the final say in everything at home. My dad never said it, but I know, if it weren't for me, he would have divorced her long ago. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and I insisted on not returning the item. Mom, so what if I didn't get your permission? From now on, I'm going to buy everything, not just the 150 yuan down jacket, but also 150 yuan shoes, 150 yuan bags, whatever my cousins have, I'm going to have it too. All three of my cousins wear Adidas and Nike, not a single pair of their shoes costs less than 500 yuan, and their down jackets are over 1,000. It's obvious that all three of their apartments were bought with my mom's financial help, and my uncle's income is nowhere near my dad's. Why does my mom insist on making me live like a beggar? Suddenly, my mom burst into tears. Fine, the two of you, father and daughter, ganging up on me. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for this family? In our previous life, my father and I would have rushed to comfort her immediately. This time, just as my good-natured father started to get up, I stepped on his foot to stop him. Sacrificed. If it were such a struggle, how could you casually throw around 200,000 like it's nothing? My dad snapped out of it when I reminded him that money has to be paid back, or else. My mom's tears instantly dried up as she turned on my dad. Jules, what gives you the right to control how I spend your money? It's marital property, for heaven's sake. 3. Oh, I get it now. You won't let me spend your money because you're seeing another woman. My father frowned, looking utterly bewildered as if he'd just eaten something disgusting. Completely failing to grasp what my mother was talking about, finally, the penny dropped for me too. In my previous life, my mother would constantly complain to me about my father's faults, fabricating stories about his flirtation with the convenience store owner downstairs, claiming his class reunions were just excuses to reconnect with his long-lost first love. That's the pot calling the kettle black. I went straight to her other closet and started hurling everything out violently. So who's the one cheating? My father stared at the lace bras and thongs scattered on the floor, completely stunned. For years, my mom couldn't stand my dad snoring, so they've been sleeping in separate rooms. Their intimate life as a couple was practically non-existent. Flustered, my mom quickly grabbed my dad's arm and put on an embarrassed act. Oh dear, and I put so much thought into this gift. I'm so sorry, honey. I was too nervous to show you this earlier, still pretending. My dad scratched his head and gave me an embarrassed glance. Oh Dad, you actually fell for that. I immediately pulled out my phone from my pocket. Mom, this is your last chance. If you have any conscience left, you'll divorce Dad immediately, set him free, and give me a chance at a normal life. I opened the chat interface on Mom's phone. The last message sent to her was from a user called Lone Wolf, my sweet little darling. Mom panicked and reached out to snatch the phone. I sidestepped her and whispered in her ear, "Divorce Dad, or I'll post everything about you and that man online. The whole world will know about your dirty little secret. Aren't you ashamed of yourself?" Mom threw the down jacket at me. "What nonsense are you talking? It's just a piece of clothing." I just smiled. "So you're not going to admit it?" "Huh." I handed my phone to Dad. "Hey Dad, check this out." My mom quickly grabbed my arm. "Let's talk this through. I'll buy you the clothes." All right. She knew perfectly well I wasn't talking about clothes. After Dad walked away, she pulled me aside and explained it was all a misunderstanding. She'd never done anything to betray him. I pointed at the transfer record on my phone. A Valentine's Day transfer of 5,200 yuan. You transferred 666 for Children's Day, and you sent 666 for his birthday. Mom, with your spending habits like this, when will you ever save up enough to help me buy a house? Mom stammered, her usual bravado vanishing instantly, as she wiped away non-existent tears and apologized to me. "It's all my fault. I had a momentary lapse in judgment. Please don't tell your father." "Okay, I'll end things with him right away. I'll keep it from Dad on one condition: buy me an apartment." Didn't Maggie keep promising to buy me an apartment? I've told this lie so often I've started to believe it myself. My dad earns $1 million a year but can only spend 800 per month. That bloodsucker mom takes every last cent. I'm going to help him get all his money back. Mom immediately shut it down. I waved my phone in the air. Mom hesitated again, asking me to give her some time to think it over and begging me not to tell Dad. I immediately turned around and handed the phone to Dad. At 3 a.m., Dad was out on the balcony chain smoking. His hands trembling with anger, I gave Dad's shoulder a reassuring pat. "Dad, let's get a divorce." Dad's eyes were red, as if he was about to cry. "All the money, I gave her every last cent. After all these years, what did I ever do wrong? Why would she treat me like this? It's not that Dad is bad, but Mom is just too awful. Dad, the top priority right now is to get the money back, for, even if Mom is at fault, if we go to court, the law will only handle it with discretion. And she'll still end up taking a portion of the assets. My plan is to not leave a single penny for Mom." Dad agreed to my plan and secretly installed surveillance cameras at home. After Mom transferred the house down payment to me, Dad pretended to be on a business trip but actually rented a room at the hotel across the street. Meanwhile, I lied about a classmate being sick and said I needed to stay at her place for a few days to help take care of her, just as expected. The most cliché and dramatic scenario unfolded. Mom was getting intimate with the delivery guy in the bedroom. Dad gathered my grandparents from both sides, along with a few other relatives and Mom's close friends and classmates. A whole entourage of over a dozen people came to our house. Dad and I got home first, and she was quick to pin the naked delivery guy under her foot. I swiftly snatched the clothes from both Mom and the delivery guy, and together with Dad, we herded them into the master bedroom's bathroom. Mom stood there naked, her face flushed with embarrassment, and whispered an apology to Dad. "I didn't mean to, honey, just let me explain." Without a word, Dad slapped her across the face. After all these years of marriage, he'd finally grown a spine. "Save your breath, sign these divorce papers, or I'll show everyone what you really are." The agreement includes a property division clause. Dad gets 80% of the assets. Mom was firmly against it and yelled at him, "Do you really think you're blameless in all this? Oh my God." She shamelessly exploits Dad, controls the family finances, funnels money to her own family, and even cheats on him behind his back. How could Mom have the nerve to shift the blame onto Dad? I'm embarrassed for her. Soon, the commotion outside grew louder. "Oh my, what's the big occasion? You've called all of us over here. Maggie, where are you? Why haven't you come out yet?" It was the voices of Grandma and Uncle. This was my chance. I shouted at the top of my lungs toward the door. "Grandma, Mom's in here." Grandma called through the door. "What's all this secrecy? Hiding in your room? What are you up to?" Grandma taught high school, and Grandpa was a university professor. They valued their reputations above all else. Mom told me that if her skirt went past her knees, Grandma would spank her when she got home. The only person who could ever keep Mom in line was Grandma. "Mom, Maggie's got quite a show lined up for you," Dad shouted triumphantly. Mom's face darkened even more. If Grandma had seen the scene, she would have beaten him half to death. "We can get divorced, but you're not getting a cent," Mom said to Dad in a hushed voice. "I'm not asking for your opinion," Dad snapped. Outside the door, Grandma seemed to sense something was wrong. "What's going on in there, Maggie?" "Jules, I deliberately lied to Mom." "Mom, as the at-fault party you'd normally forfeit all marital assets." "Dad, we're only making concessions out of respect for your years together." Then I casually took out my phone and snapped a few photos of her with the delivery guy. Mom frantically wrapped her arms around herself, while the delivery guy pressed his lips together, not daring to utter a word. "You'd better sign it now, or else even if your grandparents don't beat you to death, I'll post these photos online and let the internet's wrath drown you in a sea of scorn." Suddenly, it dawned on my mother. "Serenity, it's you. You and your father set me up, didn't you? I'm your mother. We had a deal. I buy you a house, and you help me out. Remember, what kind of mother refuses to buy her own child a 150 yuan winter coat? Mom, it's your money or your life. Choose." Grandma pounded on the door, her knocking growing more frantic. "Open up. Open the door right now." "What on earth are you doing in there?" Mom hesitated. Even if she only received 20% of the assets, that would still include the house they currently live in and 500,000 in cash. I kept emphasizing that if Dad filed for divorce due to her affair, she wouldn't get a single penny. She gritted her teeth, nodded, and signed the document. I returned the clothes to her and the delivery guy. I gave them ample time to get dressed and tidy themselves up. A moment later, the door opened, and Dad said with a cheeky grin, "Oh, nothing special, just haven't had a proper family gathering in ages. Tricked you all into coming out, my treat at the Marriott." Then Mom, all dressed up, added with a wry smile, "Surprise, right?" Grandma pulled her aside and asked gravely if she'd done anything to betray Dad. "Tell me the truth, something feels off about this." Mom glanced at me and shook her head. "Let me tell you. A man like Jules who's both a great provider and family-oriented, you hit the jackpot finding him. You'd better cherish this, you hear me?" Mom kept nodding like a child who'd done something wrong, holding the signed divorce papers in my hand. I almost laughed out loud. After dinner, once Grandma and Grandpa had left, Mom shamelessly apologized to Dad again, begging him to tear up the divorce papers. "Honey, let bygones be bygones. Can we just wipe the slate clean and start over?" Dad let out a cold snort without saying a word, packed our bags, and moved us that very night into the apartment Mom had bought for me. Only after the divorce was finalized did Mom realize the 500,000 from her 20% share had already been spent on my apartment, counted as her personal expense, leaving her with nothing. In other words, she won't get a single penny except for that house. That's when she realized Dad and I had tricked her. She blew up our phones with a dozen furious calls. "Fine, you father-daughter duo ganging up on me now. After slaving away and pinching pennies for this family all these years, one slip up and this is how you treat me." A momentary lapse of judgment. Still lying, Dad and I straight up blocked Mom's number, bought concert tickets, and took him to see his favorite Cindy Wine. Dad was jumping around like an excited kid. Grinning like a fool at Cindy Wang. It's the first time in my life I've seen Dad this happy. I secretly made a wish that Dad could stay this joyful forever. The good times didn't last. I got reported. How can someone on financial aid afford concert tickets? A truly needy student would either save spare money or buy something for their parents. How could they afford concert tickets? Since when do scholarship students live this large? I earn $30K a month and still can't justify concert expenses. Have some shame, leave the funds for those actually in need, revoke her financial aid and scholarships immediately, expel her. People like this don't deserve an education. Someone posted photos of me and Dad at the concert online. Those were actually my WeChat Moments posts. There's only one person who'd do this, Mom, no doubt about it. 5. Mom sounded downright smug on the phone. What? You think you and your father can bully me without consequences? Don't I deserve to vent? Mark my words, this isn't over between us. She posted identical photos on her father's company website along with a formal complaint. As an executive, his company deemed the scandal damaging. Though not fired, he was suspended temporarily. Not content with that, Mom posted the photos across Douyin, Xiaohongshu, Weibo, and every platform imaginable. The school publicly revoked my financial aid status, while internet vigilantes doxed Dad and me relentlessly. A flood of harassing calls and abusive messages came pouring in. Dad was frantic to file a police report. I told him to hold on. Mom's shooting herself in the foot here. I spent tens of thousands buying myself trending hashtags to attract more online criticism. When the hype peaked, I went public with a video. Hi everyone, I actually didn't apply for the financial aid grant. I've posted screenshots of my chat with Mom along with my financial support documents. Mom, let's leave this money for those who really need it. Our family isn't struggling. Don't be silly. Take what's offered. It's free money. I'm doing this for your own good. Being too honest will only get you taken advantage of later. I didn't agree. She went straight to the counselor with the documents to apply. The moment I received the money, I immediately transferred it to children in impoverished mountain areas. 8,000 yuan a year covers living expenses for 3 students. Public opinion did a complete U-turn overnight. What kind of mother would do that? Way to go, college students. Is she even a real mother? Something's not right upstairs. The mom immediately went live to clap back. On camera, she appeared haggard and wept bitterly. Family scandals shouldn't be aired in public, but even though she's my daughter, there's nothing I can do. She's completely love-struck at such a young age. She got involved with a delivery guy and was scammed out of a lot of money. We even had to use her financial aid and scholarship money to pay off her debts. She also posted my chat history with the delivery guy. Babe, I got into a car accident and need to pay 5,000 yuan in compensation. Sweetheart, can you lend me 4,000 yuan to remove this tattoo? Happy Valentine's Day, honey. Don't forget to send me a 5,200 yuan red envelope. This is absolutely hilarious. Does she think I'm stupid? Changing the profile picture to mine won't frame me, will it? These are clearly her chat logs with the delivery guy. I'd already taken screenshots of everything on her phone, then immediately uploaded the original chat history. My mom still tried to deny it, weeping to the camera. I've scrimped and saved my whole life raising this daughter, only for her to turn out so ungrateful. I straight up pulled out the surveillance footage, including the cheating scene from that family gathering. Mom got absolutely roasted. What an actress, framing her own daughter. What kind of twisted mentality is this? Is this how a mother should act? More netizens have come forward with revelations. This guy's been stringing me along for years and even asked me for money, but I never gave him any. Wait, isn't this my boyfriend? She had an affair with my sister's husband. Turns out the delivery guy wasn't just married. He was stringing along up to 10 women simultaneously. His side gig was deliveries, but scamming was his main hustle. Mom got cancelled by her own internet fame, bullied offline until she became the laughingstock of neighborhood aunties at the grocery store. Regret washed over her as she begged her father for forgiveness through tears. Honey, I was wrong. I never realized what kind of man he truly was. I thought he truly loved me, but now I see. You're the one who loves me most in this world. Her father turned away with a heavy sigh. My grandparents pinned Mom down right in front of Dad, one holding her while the other slapped her violently. Jules, we failed as parents, raised this ungrateful wretch, hit her, curse her, do whatever it takes to calm your anger. You've been married all these years, Serenity's grown up now, can't you just let this go? Mom's face was swollen from crying, her voice gone hoarse. Get back together, I'll be the first to object. After all the hell I went through to finalize this divorce, not a chance. I tugged at Dad's arm. Dad, now that I'm grown up, you know what? I fully support your decision to get divorced. Mom, how could you treat Dad and me like that all those years, and then smear our reputations over the financial aid incident? You don't deserve to be called my mother, let alone Dad's wife. Dad glanced at me and nodded. My daughter's absolutely right. The opportunity has come. I wasn't living like a real man before. Reconciliation, not a chance. Dad shoved Mom violently, sending her crashing to the floor where she sobbed uncontrollably. Honey, I swear I've learned my lesson. I love you. I can't live without you. Cut the act, Maggie. Dad swung the door open and gestured outward with a stiff after-you motion to Mom's parents and her. Please leave now, all of you. Grandma and Grandpa kept sighing. After apologizing solemnly to Dad, they took Mom away. After that, Mom secretly came back alone several times to reconcile with Dad. Dad turned her down every single time. On her final attempt, she somehow lost her marbles and showed up pregnant, carrying some delivery guy's baby. She actually had the nerve to ask Dad to take her back, expecting him to play instant daddy. Absolutely ridiculous. My dad got scared and moved out overnight, wanting nothing more to do with her. My grandparents were so ashamed they publicly disowned my mom in the family group chat. Then my mom remembered me and called demanding I send her 2,000 yuan monthly for living expenses. 6. I had no idea that bastard was seeing so many women behind my back. I'm heavily pregnant now, but he's abandoned me, never comes home anymore. Your brothers do any day now. Shouldn't I at least eat properly? And how are we supposed to afford formula? I'm still your mother. How can you be so heartless? What kind of mother makes her college-age daughter raise her son? Serves you right for taking Dad for granted when he was such a good man. Now look where you've ended up. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, until I finally yelled into the phone. You knew damn well what a monster he was, yet you still had his kid. What the hell is wrong with you? Sorry, but I don't have a mother that screwed up. Mine died years ago, with no income. My heavily pregnant mother resorted to suggestive live streaming. The content was downright disturbing. To everyone's shock, she later died from postpartum hemorrhage during childbirth. Dad quit his job for a road trip through western Sichuan, where he met a cheerful, kind-hearted woman around his age. I encouraged him to pursue her. At first, Dad was too shy, but with my help, he finally confessed his feelings to Auntie. They ended up road tripping across the country together and living happily ever after. Story 2, the sex bonding ceremony. My brilliant sister chose a noble flood dragon of pure lineage. With my meager spiritual power, I ended up with a severely wounded flying serpent nobody wanted. For decades, I nourished him with my spiritual essence and marrow. I healed his wounds and helped him take human form. Yet he wouldn't let me near him, just as I was about to give up on him. He suddenly proposed dual cultivation with me, in that moment of wild joy. Then I heard him arguing with my sister. If it weren't for Vivian's foolishness in offering her bones to heal me, I would have left with you long ago. Octavia, still refusing to cultivate with me. Fine, I'll go to Vivian then. If you won't have me, plenty others will. That's when I realized he'd always been in love with my sister. I should have known Orion had feelings for my sister all along, over a decade ago. At the beast-taming sex-bonding ceremony, the Nesetails simultaneously rested in Octavia's palm. As a true descendant of the flood dragon lineage, it's no surprise he chose the sex's strongest cultivator. What shocked everyone was the wounded tank serpent in the corner daring to. The crowd burst into mocking laughter. With your spine shattered, you wretched tank serpent still dare covet our sex head disciple. Seriously, can you even move? Don't just wiggle like a caterpillar? Senior sister Octavia is a once-in-a-century genius. How dare a mongrel flying serpent like you dream of matching her? You're only fit for the junior apprentice. With a flick of his sword, the senior brother sent the flying serpent tumbling into my arms. I looked down at the barely breathing black serpent in my embrace. A pang of compassion stirred within me. He's so much like me, born with a worthless spiritual root. My decade of cultivation couldn't match my sister's single day of progress. The entire sect despises me, considering my very existence a disgrace to their reputation. In the end, the little ting serpent became mine. I treated him as both companion and family. When he was near death, I braved the rain to beg the sex healers to save him, only to be thrown out by them. Get out of the way, we're refining a transformation elixir for elder sisters Cairo. We've no time to deal with you, know this. Cairo is the purest-blooded flood dragon in millennia. The one most likely to ascend as a true dragon. Should we waste time on some insignificant pest? Since the fall of the ancient dragon king, no true dragon has walked this world. They pinned their hopes on this flood dragon of impeccable lineage. Orion lay beside me after we were both thrown out, and I raised my hand to shield him from the rain. Then Octavia appeared, her white robes untouched by worldly dust. A golden serpent coiled around her shoulder, mirroring her imperious gaze upon mortals. Having reached the Golden Core realm, she wielded rain-warding spells with masterful precision. I'm torn between envy and self-awareness. Though both daughters of sect elders, we're worlds apart. The faint-breathing Orion seemed to sense Octavia's presence. Its tail flicked up, curling around the tip of her shoe. I frowned. Octavia sneered with even more disgust. Little sister, you'd better keep your trash under control. But when I saw him get kicked flying by Octavia, my heart softened. and I caught him in my arms. That embrace lasted for years. Sitting by the stream, I absent-mindedly stroked Orion's head, but my hand met empty air. I always believed we were each other's only family, with him by my side. Even sitting idle all day never feels dull. Ever since he gained human form, I've often been left alone. He only seeks me out when needing spirit marrow to heal his wounds. I returned to my dwelling wrapped in solitude, just as I collided head-on with Orion. The crystal ball slipped from his grasp. Frowning in urgency, he shoved me aside. Every full moon, I must shed my skin and bones anew. The past few days were no exception. Even the most miraculous elixir couldn't have healed my broken spine overnight. Besides, I couldn't afford premium medicine for myself anyway. The wound hurt so badly I couldn't stand up. I could feel my entire back soaked with blood. Orion didn't notice my pallid face, his gaze fixated solely on his crystal ball. Within it was imprinted Octavia's likeness and voice. Her cultivation skills were exceptional, but her breathtaking beauty was even more remarkable. She was revered as the celestial realm's foremost fairy maiden. In Orion's pitch-black eyes, I saw my own reflection. Years of marrow extraction have left me bloodless and gaunt. My already dull complexion now lacks even a trace of vitality. His face twisted in rage. "Are you blind? Break it and you'll pay with your life." I glanced at the Xianyuan amethyst in his hand, definitely beyond my means to compensate. All the rare treasures I risked my life for in the secret realm paled in comparison to what my sister casually let slip through her fingers. No wonder he cherished it so dearly. Gritting my teeth, I reached out to him while struggling to stand. "Orion, give me a hand." Worthless. Disgust flashed in his eyes as he avoided my outstretched hand. He walked away without a backward glance. Watching his retreating figure without hesitation, I suddenly remembered. Every time I returned from the mystic realm, battered but bearing rewards, I pleaded, "Orion, could you come with me next time? The purpose of raising spirit beasts is to fight alongside their masters. My cultivation is weak, fighting alone in the secret realm. Forget about winning, I can't even take down a low-level beast." He glanced at the reward I was holding with disdain. "Not going." I wiped the blood from my face and forced a smile. "It's fine if you don't go. It's too dangerous in there, and your injuries haven't healed yet. Stay outside where it's safe." He didn't notice the disappointment in my eyes. I just wanted him to spend some time with me, but his blunt refusal really stung. "Good. You finally get it." With that, he dashed off toward Octavia. His stride was just as resolute and unwavering back then. I watched him grasp her hand, frowning. "How could you be so careless?" Cairo, severely wounded, trailed behind Octavia as he glanced up to meet my gaze. Octavia bore a faint scratch on her hand, tended to with utmost care by Orion. He even risked his own well-being, channeling spiritual energy to heal her wounds. I stood at a distance, silently watching the scene unfold. When he returned at midnight, his steps were unsteady, his face deathly pale. His eyes met mine, brimming with vulnerability. "I know exactly what he means." I glanced at the sky. "The full moon hasn't arrived yet. What's the harm in being 2 days early? I just returned from the mystic realm, still covered in wounds. Forcibly extracting spirit bones will kill you." He can't even see it. Octavia is the only one in his eyes. "Why don't you go to Octavia now? Have her extract bones to heal your wounds?" Orion frowned and was about to say something, but he couldn't hold on. Reverting to his true form, a small python coiled on the ground. It raised its head, refusing to look at me, covered in wounds. He couldn't muster any spiritual energy, truly inherited my uselessness. Decades of cultivation yielded no results. I sighed and retreated indoors, leaving him outside. This went on for several days in a row. He stayed obediently in the courtyard all day, not running wild like when he shapeshifted. On the night of the full moon, I closed the door as usual, but at midnight, Orion wriggled his way into my arms. My body went rigid. I knew why he had come. On the full moon night, bones would be taken, yet despite my stillness, he refused to beg. Never expected he'd resort to this. He always knew how I craved this warmth. My sister and I share the same blood. The immortal ancestor prophesied before his nirvana that one of us would ascend, for millennia. Not a single soul has achieved ascension on this continent. My sister was born with celestial spiritual roots, while I was cursed with worthless ones. The outcome was obvious. She'd ascend while I'd remain earthbound. The sex resources and favor all flowed toward my sister, cast aside by my parents. I grew up alone in this crumbling courtyard since childhood. When I first brought Orion home, his injuries were so severe he couldn't move. I used to cradle him in my arms every night as we slept. It reminded me of my naive childhood when I stumbled upon my parents' cave dwelling, watching my elder sister clutch the stuffed toy our mother brought back from her trials, holding him tight against my chest. Once his wounds healed enough to move, he'd bolt to the farthest corner whenever I approached. Only then did I realize how much he resisted me, but I craved companionship so desperately, I tried to find warmth in his presence. After holding him long enough, I couldn't tell whose warmth was whose. I released him and rose to extract the bone. Every time the spirit bone was torn from my body, the agony felt like my entire being was shattered and remade. In the past, I'd howl like a wounded beast, writhing on the ground in torment. Orion would tell me to shut up. Must you be so noisy? Why can't you be more like your sister? My already paper-white face drained of its last trace of color at those words. I clenched my teeth and endured in silence. Swallowing back sobs, I bit my lips till they cracked and bled. I peeled my bloodied marrow for him. Here, for the last time, after this time, all his wounds would be healed. He stared at me without moving. I know how finicky he can be, probably disgusted by the filth of my blood. I used to meticulously wipe the blood clean before offering it to him. I'm exhausted now, take it or leave it. Just as I was about to return the spirit bone to my body, he paused. Then coiled the spirit bone with his serpent tail. I lowered my gaze, watching him drain the last drop of spiritual marrow. When he chose to follow me, I swore I'd move heaven and earth to heal his wounds. I possess nothing of real worth, only this worthless spiritual root still holds some value. A decade of grueling cultivation has drained my already limited spiritual power, making further progress nearly impossible. Even risking my life in training only allowed me to maintain my current level. Meanwhile, Octavia gained Cairo's empowerment, combined with her innate strength. She's now reached the divine transformation realm, one step closer to ascension. Heard Cairo is about to transform into a dragon too, yet here I remain, stuck in place. A true bond between master and spirit beast elevates both. I watched Orion slip away by the window. This time, I didn't call out to him, nor did I insist he stay with me like I used to. Instead, I picked up the spirit bone he'd carelessly dropped and returned it to my body, closed the window again. I didn't notice his hesitant figure, nor his awkwardly slowed steps, just lying on the bed, staring at the dilapidated ceiling. I sighed. Let it be, I suppose. Orion's wounds have healed as well. My promise has been fulfilled. Consider it compensation for all these years he's stayed by my side. I slung my trusty old sword over my shoulder, the one that's been with me for years. Left a note telling him I'm gone and he's free now. It's not like we ever made it official anyway, no need for awkward goodbyes. The moment I stepped out, Orion came walking toward me. His back was straight as a bamboo stalk. After recovering from his injuries, his extraordinary bearing became even more apparent. I wanted to slip past him unnoticed. His eyes had never registered my presence before. Even standing right before his eyes, I might as well have been invisible to him. Yet now he seized my wrist. His voice was urgent. Vivian, let's cultivate together. He stood dangerously close. In his amber eyes, I saw my own reflection, mouth slightly agape in astonishment. What did you say? His face darkened. Cultivate with me. Are you unwilling? His grip on my hand tightened. My instincts warned me of his sudden intensity. How bizarre. What do you mean why? I stared at him in silence as he impatiently averted his gaze. Ugh, enough already. We've been together this long. All the other bonded couples have already dual cultivated, except us, and now that I've recovered, I want. His voice trailed off as he spoke. I laughed. A blush spread across his face. I froze in shock. I can't believe Orion is standing right in front of me. Did he just say he wants to dual cultivate with me? I don't know how to feel about this. My long-dead heart suddenly flickered back to life. He must have some feelings for me too. After all, we've been together for over a decade. Finally managed to warm his heart. He lifted me onto the bed and leaned over, our sleeves entwined, breaths mingling. Overcome by impulse, I clutched at his collar, gazed at him with longing eyes. Orion, may I touch your tail? I've seen my sister playing in the water with Cairo. Cairo would materialize his tail for her to touch, even wrapping it around her. But I've never gotten to touch Orion's tail when he transforms. Actually, I don't think I've even seen it. The person on top of me froze instantly. Orion's gaze held an indescribable mix of complex emotions. I didn't get a chance to dwell on it, yet he withdrew from me, straightening his clothes. You're still injured. We've got all the time in the world. This was the first time he noticed the wound from when I extracted the bone for him. He even promised there'd be a future for us. I should be overjoyed, yet somehow I'm not. My chest feels tight with emotion. I gazed up at him, my dark hair spilling across the bed, yet he left without so much as a glance. Clean and decisive, I sat in silence for a long moment. I'll make excuses for him. Perhaps he's just not used to being close with me yet. I want to have a heart-to-heart talk with him. There's no need to rush things. I can wait 10 years, or even 100. Gazing at the desolate night sky, I stepped out the door. My gaze froze when it landed on the note lying on the table. If he truly intended to build a life with me, then this note would serve no purpose anymore. Clutching it in my palm, I went to find Orion. The same person who was whispering sweet nothings to me moments ago is now entangled with my sister, Octavia. Are you truly blind to me? I can treat you just as well as Cairo does. Octavia frowned. Orion, you already have Vivian. Vivian, what does she matter compared to you? If not for her foolish willingness to sacrifice her own bones to heal me, I would have left with you long ago." With that, he tore open his robe, revealing fair skin still marked by my scratches. "Octavia, still refusing to dual cultivate with me? Fine, I'll go find Vivian. If you won't have me, plenty others will," Octavia snapped sharply, her voice piercing. "You two practice dual cultivation. She's still waiting for me in bed. If you miss me, go back and keep her company." He lowered his head, gazing intently at Octavia while his face remained obscured from my view. Only the thick disdain in his tone reached my ears. "I forbid it." The last thing I saw was Octavia throwing herself into his arms, licking away the traces I'd just left. Orion didn't push her away like he did with me. Instead, he closed his eyes in pleasure, a faint smile playing on his lips. How ridiculous. I almost burst out laughing. So toying with me was just his way of proving his love for Octavia. "Did you get a kick out of manipulating me like a puppet?" I hurled the crumpled note into the mud, turned and walked away, clutching my sword. I left the sect, never knew my sword flight could be this swift. The wind lashed against my face, like a series of icy slaps across the face. They jolted me awake, extinguishing even my desperate urge to confront them and drag us all down together. I didn't even have the courage to confront him. I can't bring myself to ask why on earth would he choose Octavia over me. Anyone with eyes would pick Octavia if we stood side by side. Is that even a question? That's just asking for humiliation. What else could I do but slink away in disgrace, fight them to the death? Even if I gave my life, I couldn't so much as scratch them. I despised myself countless times. Why do I have to be so pathetic? If I were more outstanding, would I also receive parental love and affection? Laughing and crying along the way, I lost all sense of where I was flying. When I came to my senses, I saw fireflies blanketing the fields below like an inverted starry sky, so breathtakingly beautiful that it caught my eye. I descended involuntarily, only to discover a primeval forest. Even the smallest tree here would require dozens of people to encircle its trunk. The cultivation world's terrain has been thoroughly mapped by practitioners. Alchemists would never pass up such massive trees for firewood. I can't figure out why such a bizarre forest suddenly appeared near our sect. There was definitely nothing like this before. When I tried to leave by sword flight, I found my spiritual energy completely drained. I just froze for a moment, instantly assumed a combat stance, scanning the surroundings with vigilance. Over the years, I've frequented mystic realms more times than I can count, partly to hone my skills, partly to put food on the table. That money-guzzling gremlin at home insists on nothing but the finest, a treasure I risked dozens of secret realms to obtain, yet it's not worth the sachet Octavia casually discarded. Foolish me, I thought he fancied the celestial brocade fabric, exhausted myself hoarding spirit stones, barely rested before plunging into realms again, in the end, battered and bruised. I finally managed to get him the same exquisite fabric for his pouch. I remember being overjoyed at that moment. "Orion, you'll have what others possess, let me get you one." Before my fingers could even graze the pouch, he swatted my hand away. "Don't you dare get it dirty." But Octavia didn't even want it in the first place. Besides, my hands are clean, not a drop of blood on them. Still not good enough. I watched as he carefully tucked the embroidered pouch into his bosom, not even glancing at the celestial brocade I'd brought back. It wasn't the pouch he cherished, but rather the one who made it. Only I remained foolishly unaware. My mind drifts away. I glance around. No signs of other souls nearby. I've explored hundreds of hidden realms, big and small. Secret realms always announce their openings beforehand, with cultivation level restrictions and spirit stone fees for registration. Never have I stumbled into a secret realm so cluelessly before. The moment I realized this realm nullified spiritual power, my panic vanished. I've been to realms like this, where everyone fights barehanded when spiritual energy fails. My weak spiritual power actually works to my advantage. Seasoned through countless expeditions into mystic realms, when it comes to barehanded combat, few in the cultivation world can best me in a fight. More than once, I've discovered treasures amidst adversity because of this. This battered sword in my hand came to me the same way. Though utterly unremarkable, it has no redeeming qualities either, yet in battle, this blade sings with a hum, makes enemy spirit beasts flee in terror, a godsend for someone like me without spirit beast support. Just a bit dull, can't even make wood chips fly when chopping trees. I can no longer ride my sword. Massive trees crowd together, blocking my path. Left with no choice, I attempt to chop down the towering tree before me. A voice suddenly rings out, "That's the spot. Put some muscle into it if you're trying to scratch an itch." A sudden voice spoke, scaring me out of my wits. The voice was utterly eerie, indiscernible in gender, untraceable in direction. It seemed to rise from the ground yet descend from the heavens. "Who's there? Stop playing games." But the voice gave no reply. Silence enveloped everything. Only the rhythmic thud of my axe echoed through the woods, barely making a dent in the ancient tree. Even the fireflies in the woods remained undisturbed. hovering around me. I was beside myself with rage. I unleashed all my pent-up fury, resentment, and bitterness, blow after blow, with all my might, until sweat drenched my body, until my palms were raw and bleeding, until exhaustion stole the strength to lift my sword. I fell, then rose again, longing to shatter this invisible cage. Strangely, nothing emerged to strike me. The sky never brightened. I lost track of time, mechanically repeating the same motion. Suddenly, a figure slid down the smooth tree trunk. With a light tap on my sword, they flipped and landed behind me. Though he barely exerted any force, the sword slipped from my grasp. I eyed the approaching figure warily. When he turned around, he looked every bit a youth of 17 or 18. Orion's breathtaking beauty outshone them all, but I know full well that in the cultivation world, appearances can be deceiving when judging someone's age. That youthful face with raven hair might belong to an ancient monster who's lived for centuries. The newcomer yawned, rubbing sleep from their eyes. What brings you here in the dead of night instead of sleeping? For some reason I'm trapped here. I need to get out. He raised an eyebrow. So, he glanced at the sword by my feet, then back at me. He nodded. Fine then, useless little thing. Keep trying. With that, he flung his robe aside and lay down to sleep on the ground. I watched him warily for a long moment. Instead of an attack, all that came was the soft rhythm of his sleeping breath. I dared not move another muscle. Their intentions remain unclear. Friend or foe, it's hard to tell. I sat quietly nearby, keeping a close eye on them. If they made any moves, I'd be ready to react. But before I knew it, I can't believe I fell asleep. When I opened my eyes, a jade-like face was inches from mine. I recoiled in shock. I patted my cheeks to calm myself down. I actually fell asleep. Has my vigilance really deteriorated to this point? Even when I accidentally entered that illusion before and saw Orion's face, I never let my guard down. I was so afraid of being ensnared that I even killed the illusionary Orion on the spot. If it's not me who's compromised, then there's only one possibility. I sense no imminent danger around me. My gaze falls upon the boy lying on the ground, with long lashes, a straight nose, and an utterly defenseless, harmless appearance. Suddenly realizing something, I raised my eyes to the sky. Dawn broke. I called the boy twice, but he didn't wake. I left him be and went back to chopping wood. I need to get out. The youth had woken at some point, lounging lazily against a nearby tree, not tired. Since he wasn't making a move against me, I decided to ignore him. He occasionally made small talk, his gaze always lingering on me. I lost my patience and pinned him against the tree with my sword. What the hell do you want? He looked at me, his lashes fluttering slightly, seemingly at a loss. Why, finally, he pulled out a spirit fruit from his robe. Eat this if you're hungry. The crimson spirit peach looked utterly delectable. I once tasted it at Octavia's birthday celebration. That first bite made me fall in love with its flavor instantly, but after just 2 mouthfuls, my parents chased me out, claiming I'd defiled their sacred grotto and might disturb the guests. What a pity that half of a spirit peach fell to the ground during the scuffle, now dusted with dirt. My father kicked it away with a single stomp, as effortlessly as he'd kicked me aside. That day, I'd run to them brimming with joy to announce I'd reached the foundation establishment stage. I thought if I became strong enough, they'd finally accept me, but compared to Octavia, who's already at golden core stage, my pitiful cultivation isn't even worth mentioning. Suddenly I don't feel like going out anymore. There's nothing good out there anyway, nobody's waiting for me, and no one would be expecting my return either. My body went limp, the sword slipping from my grasp. What's wrong? Even if you don't like the food, there's no need to cry. I ran a hand over my face. To my surprise, my palm came away wet. His voice softened. It's not poisoned. Here, watch. He made as if to pop the spirit peach into his mouth. I snatched it and took a bite. My eyes widened involuntarily. This is unbelievably delicious, even better than the celestial peaches at Octavia's birthday feast. I'd die without regrets even if it poisoned me. Though concern still filled his eyes, he retorted with pride, "Of course, anything from my hands is bound to be delicious." I asked him, "Who are you? At least tell me your full name, or I'll really be poisoned to death. And even as a ghost I wouldn't know who to haunt for revenge." He snorted and turned his head away. "Xavier, that sounds familiar." His eyes lit up as he eagerly leaned in like a puppy. "Really? Does it ring any bells? What else do you remember?" I tossed the fruit pit aside and shook my head. Xavier sighed and muttered under his breath, "Typical you, heartless." I couldn't catch what he said, and when I asked again, he refused to repeat it, just shoved another spirit peach into my hand. After eating my fill, I realized the sadness had dulled, rolling up my sleeves. I itched to grab my sword and resume chopping trees, so desperate to leave. What's so great about the outside world? My sword hand froze mid-motion. Better than being trapped here, right? He chewed on a blade of grass. "Having me here isn't good enough for you." I deadpanned. "What? Do you think you're some priceless treasure?" Xavier held his head high with pride, with disdain. "Don't compare me to such vulgar things." It struck me how childishly he was behaving. I humored him with a dismissive, yeah, sure. He ended up getting upset, kept insisting I compare who's better, him or those mediocre things. I've got a headache. Time stands still in the mountains, no telling how long it's been. Time seems to slip through my fingers. I still try to find a way out every day, and have grown accustomed to Xavier's constant chatter by my side. When I sleep, he'd materialize his tail for me to rest on. His tail scales are pitch black, with occasional golden glimmers flickering through. It's unlike any tail I've ever seen. I couldn't resist running my fingers over it again and again, oblivious to his flushed ears. I only noticed how his tail quivered beneath my touch, amused by his tsundere act, protesting yet never withdrawing his tail. I kept playing with it relentlessly. I asked Xavier what kind of spirit beast he was, but he refused to tell me, insisting I guess instead. Every day he'd bring me all sorts of different foods. Strangely enough, his magic bag always seemed to contain exactly my favorite snacks. His scheduled food delivery somehow became the highlight of my day. Under my pleading gaze, Xavier handed me another lotus cake. I devoured it in 2 bites and turned my expectant eyes back to him. He frowned. It's too late. You'll get indigestion if you eat more. Just one more piece. We cultivators don't get indigestion, please. The word slipped out before I realized it. I've never acted coquettishly with anyone in my life, yet now, I found myself naturally playing coy like Octavia. This realization both astonished and unsettled me. Xavier didn't notice my unease, instead casually pulling out another lotus seed cake from the bag and placing it in my palm, the last one. I gazed at the delicate pink pastry in my hand. It suddenly dawned on me that I hadn't thought about my parents or Octavia for days. Even Orion rarely crosses my mind anymore. Perhaps I'm not as hung up on them as I thought. I gaze at this patch of sky and earth, then lift my eyes to the treetops piercing the clouds. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, I had an epiphany. It wasn't the tree that trapped me, but the insurmountable wall in my heart. What once seemed impossible now feels trivial. I closed my eyes, feeling spiritual energy radiating through my body, unnoticed by me. The trees trapping me were being uprooted one by one. Xavier's voice faintly reached me. I knew this little predicament couldn't hold you back, Ain. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself surrounded by a sea of snow-white blossoms. This must be where I accidentally wandered into the secret realm. Everything around me looks familiar. I'm back. But there's no sign of Xavier anywhere. These days feel like a dream to me. But the half-eaten lotus cake in my hand tells me it's not. Xavier is real, but I never got the chance to say goodbye to him. Sect disciples nearby were startled when I materialized out of thin air. They scattered in noisy panic, paying them no mind. I focused on locating the secret realm's entrance. At least I can properly say goodbye to Xavier, though I don't really know who he is. But he might be the kindest person I've ever met in my life. I feel a strange sense of loss. So I didn't notice Orion rushing over in a hurry. When my arm was grabbed, my eyes lit up, thinking it was Xavier. Turning around, I saw it was Orion. My gaze dimmed, pushing his hand away indifferently. You, of all people. Orion's brows furrowed deeply at my reaction. His voice rose. Where have you been these 7 years? Do you have any idea how long we've been searching for you? 7 years had passed in that hidden realm. Who would have thought? I don't get it. What do you want from me? His injuries have healed, so there's no need for me to rush back every month to collect the bones. I'm no longer of any use to him. He should be glad I'm leaving. Free at last, aren't we? I looked at him, catching the word. You all. Orion lowered his eyelids. And your parents, and Octavia, will they come looking for me? Ha, they probably wouldn't even care where I died, would they, given Octavia's cultivation speed? She should have ascended by now. I still can't figure out the reason. Octavia and my elder parents arrived in haste. Octavia looked as radiant as ever, though shadows of exhaustion lingered between her brows. Octavia's eyes lit up at the sight of me. Little sister, you're back. My father stepped forward accusingly. You wretched creature, finally decided to show your face. You're the one who poisoned Octavia, aren't you? Poison? What poison? My mother stepped forward, still playing dumb. The frostbane powder corroding Octavia's spiritual roots. Dare you deny it was your doing? You've been to the Black Tortoise secret realm. Frostbane powder is a poison unique to the Black Tortoise realm. The slightest contact causes it to latch onto spiritual roots, slowly eating them away. I did go there, that very time Orion tended to Octavia's wounds despite his own injuries. With so many people who could have entered the secret realm, why single me out? The next moment, Father gave his answer. We knew you've always envied your sister's superiority since childhood. That's why we kept you at arm's length, yet you still committed this unforgivable atrocity. With your sister's ascension, wouldn't you benefit as her sibling? Why resort to harming her like this? I took a step back. I didn't do it. My mother snapped. Octavia has been adored by the entire sect since childhood. Who else but you would resent her? I knew all they wanted was my confession, not my defense. They didn't believe me. I might have felt sad about it before, but now, I just feel indifferent. I have no expectations of them. Octavia approached Orion. We owe it to you for keeping your sister occupied. Orion, she would have escaped again otherwise. Orion's eyes reddened at the corners as he avoided my gaze. I drew my sword, ready to flee, but my father's overwhelming aura pinned me in place. Wretched creature. Still thinking of attacking, I stood frozen before the overwhelming spiritual energy. Crushed to my knees, I coughed up blood. Orion tipped 2 steps forward, only for Octavia to grab his wrist. Orion, haven't you seen how much she's already ruined me? Orion halted, his voice bitter. We agreed. Just take her spiritual root and spare her life. Hearing this, I raised my head to look at them. What exactly were they planning to do? Later, I was dragged back to the sect and hung from the celestial altar with soul-binding chains. This is where the sect punishes its sinners. None who ascend these steps ever return alive. The sect leader sits in judgment, fabricating false charges against me day after day. All they want is for me to surrender my spiritual roots to Octavia. Octavia's spiritual roots are ruined. No amount of cultivation can save them now. They've set their sights on me instead, though my spiritual roots are defective, but as her full-blooded sister, my roots are the most compatible match. With a new spiritual root, she could start cultivating again. Though it meant starting from scratch once more, with Octavia's strength, she wasn't the least bit intimidated. She arrogantly assumed my low cultivation level was due to unwillingness to train. Even with a worthless spiritual root, she'd still managed to cultivate something extraordinary. I scoffed. What a pipe dream. No wonder they thought of me. No wonder they recognized me again. So there were profits to be made. Who damaged Octavia's spiritual root doesn't matter. As long as they pinned the blame on me, they could harvest the spirit bone with clear conscience. In the end, Octavia herself performed the extraction under Orion's supervision. Octavia brandished her icy blade with mock concern. Oh dear, I might accidentally hurt you if my hand slips, little sister. With that, she sliced open the flesh on my lower back. Covering her mouth with a delicate hand, she cooed, "Oops, my hand slipped, sweetie." Orion frowned nearby. "Be careful, don't mess up, go easy on her, she's in pain." He soothed me gently. "It'll be over soon, even without your spiritual roots. I won't abandon you." I glared at him coldly. "Spare me your fake concern, you two deserve to rot in hell." Orion fell silent, his eyes darkening. "So you saw everything that day, didn't you?" He produced a slip of paper from his hand. The one I'd thrown into the mud when leaving. He'd restored it. The paper was pristine. It read, "I set you free, never see each other again." He glared at me furiously. "So you just walked out on me like that? How dare he act so self-righteous? What did you expect? To watch you two having fun right in front of me, and Orion, who abandoned him here?" Orion stumbled backward in panic. "That's not true, Octavia and I." Before he could finish, Octavia's blade plunged deep into my back again. Her voice turned icy. "Honestly, facing death and you're still putting on this star-crossed lover's act for me." Orion grabbed her wrist. "Octavia, you're digging in the wrong spot." Octavia's ethereal demeanor shattered completely. Her voice turned shrill, face contorted with rage. "So what if I got the wrong one? To think I'd ever rely on a worthless insect like her, if her spiritual root weren't useful to me. I'd never touch her filthy remains." She vented her fury by stabbing me repeatedly, each thrust more vicious than the last. She seemed utterly deranged. Orion tried to stop her, and she looked at him with fragile eyes. "Orion, Cairo's already half crippled. You're all I have left. Won't you even help me?" Orion's heart softened toward her. He pleaded with me. "Vivian, Octavia's emotionally unstable. Please cut her some slack." Hearing this, I, covered in blood, let out a feeble laugh. "How considerate of you to dump this on me," gritting my teeth against the pain. I clenched the soul-binding chains restraining me. "What gives you the right? I truly can't comprehend why this is justified. You take what's mine, then spit on me." Not a soul asked what I wanted. "It's rightfully mine. How dare you take it and expect me to accept it?" My body erupted with overwhelming defiance. At that very moment, the soul-binding chains shattered upon me. The heavens convulsed with sudden turmoil. In an instant, daylight surrendered to darkness. A figure emerged from the shadows. Draped in starlight, he stopped before me and pulled me into an embrace, producing a box of candied flower buds. "Brought you some lunch." In the faint glow, his handsome features were clearly visible, with clear irritation in his voice. "It's barely been half a day. How did you end up in this state?" It was Xavier. Creatures born in adversity remain confined to their hidden realms for life. Never seen anyone escape from there alive. He sneered. "Touch my tail and think you can leave? Not a chance." That's when I realized a beastfolk's tale holds special significance. No wonder Orion refused to let me touch it before. I could hear the concern in his voice. For some reason, a wave of sadness welled up inside me. He gently wiped away the tear at the corner of my eye with his thumb. Don't cry. I'm here. I didn't cry under torture, didn't shed a tear when stabbed, but seeing him, my tears broke free like floodgates. Octavia's voice trembled. Who the hell are you? Get lost now, or you'll regret it. Xavier's gaze shifted to the two figures behind me, with an icy tone. You all deserve to die. Orion stepped forward, shielding Octavia, about to speak. Crushed by Xavier's overwhelming pressure, they collapsed to the ground, bleeding from all orifices. As Xavier moved to strike again, I stopped him. He nodded knowingly. Got it. Won't steal your revenge moment. Thanks, Xavier. His pupils trembled. You remember. I didn't respond, sensing only my spiritual root. Perceiving all things in existence, they all called me a worthless spiritual root, and at first I believed it too. My spiritual root couldn't retain spiritual energy, barely reaching the foundation establishment stage, and then progress became impossible. I used to think I was born to be this useless, until I remembered how Xavier once asked why I wanted to leave. I said, even if I end up with nothing, I'd rather not be trapped in this tiny corner of the world. He smiled at me. Why nothing? When you spread your arms, you're embracing the whole world. I thought he was just comforting me at the time. Now I realize, no, it seems he was trying to wake me up. My spiritual roots can't store spiritual energy if I don't cultivate. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth shall bend to my will. The surrounding spiritual energy surged toward me, forming a swirling vortex. I was swept into its midst. Countless calamitous clouds gathered overhead. Yet the heavenly tribulation lightning stubbornly withheld its strike. Countless onlookers witnessed this phenomenon, and the sect master immediately recognized, could this be the ascension thunderclouds? This spectacle was unprecedented. Even Octavia's divine transformation lightning couldn't compare to 1/10 of this magnitude. Elder Yun exclaimed excitedly. I knew it. Octavia was destined to ascend sooner or later. Madame Yun leapt with joy. Octavia is about to ascend the moment she obtains her spiritual roots. Thank heavens that useless child I bore finally serves a purpose. That's our daughter ascending. Let's go safeguard her cultivation breakthrough. A grand procession rushed toward the celestial realm, only to be stunned by the sight before them. With my foot planted on Orion's chest, I pointed my sword at Octavia. The onlookers gasped in horror. Elder Yin rushed forward, shouting, "Wretched girl! How dare you treat your own sister this way? She's on the verge of ascension." I raised my eyes to meet their gaze. The apocalyptic thunderclouds dissipated, revealing daylight. Night turned back to day once more, as if the earlier storm had been nothing but a mirage. Ascension. How could one who's ascended be trampled beneath my feet? Octavia's face was bruised and swollen. The humiliation of her disheveled appearance being exposed before everyone was more than she could bear. She shrieked. "Vivian, how dare you treat me like this? When I ascend, I'll make sure you suffer a fate worse than death." I smirked. "We'll talk when that day of ascension actually comes." Orion's eyes were red with tears streaming down his face, lingering. "How could you be so cruel to me? You used to treat me so kindly, you used to love me so much. Don't you remember, every month you'd extract my marrow to heal my wounds?" Before I could speak, Xavier stormed forward in fury. "What? You extracted his marrow, treated his wounds, and you loved him?" Xavier's eyes widened, his voice cracking as he circled me demanding answers. "The noise is giving me a headache, so I told him to scram." He gave me a pitiful look before walking away and crouching with his back to me. I sighed and turned my gaze back to Orion. "You're absolutely right." I crushed his spine underfoot, and the pain instantly forced him back to his true form, reverting to that little snake I first met. Almost forgot to withdraw it. I meant to heal his wounds as payment for his company, then part ways forever. But he just had to put on that fake act and disgust me to my face, annoying me, and then some. My gaze fell on the figure crouching in the corner. Orion wouldn't give up, his tail brushing against my shoe. I kicked him away with one foot. He was completely done for, couldn't even lift a finger anymore. Octavia turned pale seeing how merciless I was even to Orion, but I showed no mercy, stabbing her full of holes. "Pay her back 1,000-fold, my Octavia." Lady Yin stood aghast. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, leaving her no time to intervene. "You wicked girl." She lunged at me, only to be deflected by a single sweep of my blade. She crashed onto the cloud pillar, blood spilling from her lips. The sect master immediately realized the truth, prostrating himself in worship. "So you've ascended. We humbly welcome the divine venerable Vivian." He led the sea of disciples to kneel in unison. "Those who once looked down on me now bow before me, yet I feel no satisfaction in my heart. This doesn't count as ascension, just returning to my rightful place." I was a celestial deity reborn. 10,000 years ago, demonic hordes invaded, turning the mortal realm into purgatory. I sacrificed my very being, only to have my soul scattered to the winds. Only through the endless devotions of later generations was I granted rebirth. Elder Yen's eyes gleamed with pride. My dear daughter, I always knew you were destined for greatness, when the celestial ancestor ordained our fates. They chose Octavia, the gifted one between us sisters, and left me to wither like wild grass. They never loved me, and I feel nothing for Octavia. Who are you? What they truly cherish is merely the status that brings them glory. When I grow powerful, they'll naturally come crawling to flatter me. Yet before all, I severed ties with Elder Yun and his wife, cutting all connections with the sect. They dare not utter a single word in my presence. As I turned, I found Orion had somehow crawled back to my feet again. His voice was weak, lingering. Are you leaving me? I nodded. I don't love you, and you don't love me. We're only together because we each want something. He was just trying to heal his wounds. With no one to love me, I made him my emotional crutch. Nobody truly loves anyone. Orion frantically tried to prove himself. No, I do love you. It wasn't until you left that I realized I can't live without you. Xavier, who'd been sulking in the corner, suddenly charged over and kicked him flying. I'm still right here. Xavier stood with hands on hips, putting on a defiant show. I turned back and called out, come on, let's go home. Xavier's eyes lit up with a pout. You finally came to take me home. I was originally a deity of the celestial realm. Wuin governs the vitality of heaven and earth. Xavier was a little snake I found during my time as a deity. When I first met him, he was struggling to climb a tree, making small progress before sliding back down. Divine existence made for long, tedious days. I found it amusing. Go on, you useless little thing. It twisted its head to glare at me, beady eyes burning with fury. Amused, I took it back to my cave, noticing its jet black scales. I named it Xavier, pronounced like shuishing. He was so frantic that he kept circling around me, practically itching to speak. But as I called him that way every day, he gradually grew accustomed to it. Little did I know, one day 2 horns suddenly sprouted from his head. Turns out his true form was a dragon, the azure dragon who governs day and night. Eventually became my steed. When demonkind fell into chaos, I told him I'd be right back, asked him to wait for me at home. He suspected nothing, yet little did I know, I'd sacrifice the world. He never lived to see my return, and so he stubbornly turned my sanctuary into a prison. Only darkness dwelled within, where he slumbered, waiting solely for me. Had I not glimpsed signs of awakening and returned to my former sanctuary, who knows how much longer he must wait. I mocked his foolish devotion. If I'm gone, must you just stand there? With your talents, many would gladly take you as their master. His face darkened at these words. I want no one but you. I knew you'd come back to me. The moment I woke up, there you were before me. With that, he pulled out a spirit peach from his robe. Here, your favorite. I accepted it with a smile and returned to my cave abode, content to watch the drifting clouds. Later I heard that after my departure, Octavia was discarded by the sect as a failed investment. The sect never produced another genius disciple thereafter. They knew no one would ascend again, so they set their sights on Cairo, who was left crippled after taking the blow for Octavia. After all, his bloodline was the purest. To heal his wounds, they replicated my method, harvesting marrow from their own kin to treat him. Orion's marrow was the only suitable match in the entire sect. I had already crippled him, yet the sect kept him barely alive to extract his marrow day after day. He's now endured the same torment I once suffered. Oh, and I believe I've figured out who poisoned Octavia. It was Cairo, that day after leaving the secret realm. He glanced at me and sprinkled powder on Orion's robe. Later, when Orion treated Octavia's wounds, it transferred to her. At the time, I only relaxed after seeing the medicine caused Orion no harm. I'm well aware that Cairo's target is Octavia. Since spirit beasts can't attack their masters, he had Orion administer the poison instead. I don't know his motives or the reasons behind this. Frankly, I couldn't care less about their love-hate drama. My gaze fell upon someone cooking for me. His tail curled in my arms as I absent-mindedly stroked it, whining playfully. When will my candied pastry be ready? Xavier blushed and glanced back with a raised eyebrow. Always the greedy one. It's almost done. Story 2. Gasping for breath, I sat up on the lounge chair by the villa's swimming pool. Didn't I just die? Looking around at the familiar surroundings. Wasn't this 3 days before the catastrophic meteor strike? The last day my parents abandoned me abroad. Tomorrow would be the day I returned home. And also when my real nightmare began, the starting point of being doomed to die by their hands after the apocalypse. You want to bring me back to be Eamon's fall guy? Forget about it in this lifetime. As a child, they abandoned me in an orphanage for that bastard Eamon, then brought me back just for the company's reputation and left me neglected abroad. This Eamon wants to marry Vera from the super wealthy Vera's family. but got Selena from Selena's family, who had a marriage pact with Cressida's family, pregnant. That's when my father and grandmother remembered me abroad. In my past life, I was happy returning home, but they got me drunk at the welcome banquet and threw me into Selena's bed that very night. Then came the apocalypse. Meteor impacts destroyed most cities, volcanic eruptions unleashed rivers of lava, followed by 6 months of global drought and then 3 months of relentless rain. The remaining land could no longer sustain crops. After the floods, a mysterious virus swept across the planet, claiming countless lives on Blue Star. A degenerate race emerged, infected beings who feared sunlight. Though physically formidable, they were driven by primal instincts, active only at night. Their intelligence was low, yet they obeyed their leaders without question. Few among the degenerate race possessed higher intellect. Those who did inevitably became their leaders. The degenerate race is humanity's natural enemy, their greatest craving being human flesh and blood. When the two sides meet, it's essentially a fight to the death. Back then, I muddle-headedly married Selena and became Eamon's fall guy. After the apocalypse, with communication severed between the two regions, the marriage arrangements between Eamon and Vera were delayed. The result was Selena and Eamon becoming entangled again, while my entire family kept me in the dark. It wasn't until I nearly died from severe injuries while holding off the degenerates for them that I learned Eamon and Selena had been together all along. I'd been supporting these parasites, and in the end, their son, the boy I'd raised for over a decade, personally abandoned my dying body to the degenerates. Since I've been reborn in this life, I absolutely won't entangle myself with these people again. As long as they don't provoke me, fine, otherwise, I'll repay enmity with enmity. However, I still must return to my home country tomorrow. The city I'm currently in will be destroyed by meteor strikes, with the land covered in lava. At least the city I'm heading to wasn't hit by the first wave of apocalyptic meteor attacks. As for the subsequent droughts and torrential rains, I just need to find that sealed and abandoned civil defense facility in the Gadishan Mountains from my memories. The only question is how to solve the food problem. I suddenly felt a burning sting on my left wrist as a mysterious symbol emerged, feeling strangely familiar. It was the same symbol from that peculiar crystal bracelet I'd picked up after the incident. I'd always worn that crystal bracelet on my wrist, but now it had somehow fused with my body during rebirth. As I traced the symbol with my right hand, pondering its purpose, the surroundings abruptly shifted. I found myself transported to an extraordinary space. A glowing orb materialized before my eyes. Master, welcome to the fairy spirit space. This space is divided into an infinite portable storage space, planting and breeding space, and processing space. Everything can be controlled with just a thought. Isn't this like a pillow delivered just when you're sleepy? I work in the logistics warehouse of the world's largest supermarket chain, with an infinite portable space. I can empty out all the logistics storage here. Since this place is going to be destroyed anyway, it might as well benefit me. Anyway, I have a flight back home early tomorrow morning, so I'll make a trip there tonight. I'm very familiar with the surveillance camera positions in the logistics warehouse. Coincidentally, the cameras on one route have been broken for 2 days. The repair speed here is really slow. By the time I boarded the plane the next day, my storage space had nearly emptied the goods inside the logistics warehouse. The theft from the logistics warehouse would likely only be discovered after the plane took off, but that was no longer my concern. The meteorite the day after would obliterate everything. However, the haul from that night was enormous. Various foods, seeds, daily necessities, clothing, tools, appliances, fuel, generators, drones, weapons, and notably a batch of heavy weaponry, likely being transferred through the logistics warehouse. On my way back, I conveniently stored the large construction vehicles, heavy-duty off-road trucks, various armored off-road vehicles, and other future-proof large vehicles like RVs parked in the neighboring auto warehouse into my space. Coincidentally, there happened to be 3 assault boats transported here via transit, along with 2 medium-sized yachts and 3 helicopters. Might as well take them all. The logistics park was currently flashing with police car lights, and this bizarre theft case left the officers completely baffled. Meanwhile, the mastermind was sleeping soundly on the plane, exhausted after a night's hard work. By the time I left the airport, it was already the early hours of a new day. My family definitely wouldn't send anyone to pick me up, just like in my previous life, but I wasn't planning to go home anyway. I took a taxi out of the city to the nearest town to Gadishan, intending to first locate that sealed-off, abandoned civil air defense facility. In my past life, this place was initially occupied by a group of local village thugs before being taken over by the evolved leader of the degenerates. This time, I planned to make it my base. At dawn, I found the passage on the cliff from my memory, a sealed, abandoned civil defense structure whose entrance couldn't be opened from the outside, hidden within the mountain. This century-old civil defense facility remains well constructed. It's NBC nuclear. biological, chemical, air filtration system is intact, and air quality readings are fully compliant. In the afternoon, I went to the town below to complete the mountain lease paperwork. The 20-year contract cost me 600,000 yuan, and the town clerks probably thought they'd met a fool. Then I spent all my savings at the gas station ordering 200 tons of diesel, 200 tons of gasoline, and the accompanying tanker trucks. After all, this cash will depreciate after the apocalypse, turning into worthless paper 6 months after the meteor strike, far less useful than the billions worth of supplies in my space. But to expedite getting this batch of fuel, I had to slip 2 million to the gas station manager. When my plane arrived in the country, I didn't even go home. It wasn't until evening that my scumbag dad Maddox, prompted by my stepmother Ember, realized it. But my phone kept going unanswered. Of course it couldn't connect. I changed to a local number after returning. And with the poor signal on Gada Mountain, I had to rely on satellite phones, but they didn't have my new number. That night, Maddox was furious but had no choice but to send people to search. At 3 p.m., everyone received the national alert to take shelter from the meteorite impact, and overseas citizens also got the government's notice. Though many cities were still in the darkness of early morning, however, the meteorite strike came extremely suddenly. Just over 10 minutes after receiving the alert, the meteorites came crashing down, turning the city I'd lived in for 5 years into a lake of molten lava. I'm extremely grateful that most of the supplies from that logistics park were neatly stored in my portable space. Now whenever I receive diesel and gasoline, I head straight to the mountains. Fortunately, our vicinity hasn't been hit by meteorites. All 8 diesel and gasoline tankers have arrived at their designated locations. After I signed, all the drivers got into the minibus at the back and left. After securing the 8 fuel tankers, I took out an off-road motorcycle and went up the mountain. I still need to organize the civil air defense facilities on Gada Mountain. The upcoming 6-month drought is approaching, and although it hasn't completely destroyed government control, many overseas countries have already become virtually non-existent. Cressida's family finally tracked me down a week later. But the meteorite strikes had severely damaged their trade-dependent business. They no longer had the heart to bring me back, and the people they sent were killed by wild beasts emerging from the mountains. I finally managed to clean out the civil air defense shelter within a week and arranged various items to make it quite comfortable, and so, every day I would drink tea and enjoy the view at the edge of the cliff. The rest of the time, I set up numerous photovoltaic power stations from my space on the sunny side for lighting and powering electrical appliances, while conserving diesel and gasoline as there would be 3 months of heavy rain ahead. In the planting area of my space, I sowed various seeds with good yields. After harvest, I could process them into needed supplies and store them. I also collected many animal offspring in the breeding space. Since I had enough frozen meat to last, I could take my time with breeding. Keeping this batch of seed stock, my self-sufficient ecosystem is now complete, though I still need to replenish seafood and freshwater fish, shrimp, and crabs. After the meteorite attack, the price of fresh aquatic products has risen, but I still managed to buy some with gold to raise in my space. I drove out of the seafood market in a rented off-road pickup truck, delivering my pre-ordered live seafood into the fish pond of my cultivation space. There are actually many usable vehicles in our space, but they lack license plates. Since the government hasn't collapsed yet and traffic police are still patrolling the streets, it's better to avoid unnecessary trouble for now. I didn't respond to Cressida's family, thwarting Eamon and Maddox's plans, combined with the heavy losses suffered by Cressida Group's overseas projects after the meteorite attack. They haven't been in the mood to approach me lately, however. Selena's belly grows bigger by the day. The marriage alliance between Eamon and Vera's family in Shangjing has been temporarily called off. The area near Shangjing was hit by meteorites, though the administrative institutions remained unharmed. However, Vera's family's suburban estate was destroyed. The patriarch of Vera's family happened to be in the estate at the time. Vera's family is now busy arranging the funeral. Additionally, with the roads and highways connecting to our area affected, the only option is air travel, but Shangjing's airport was destroyed, cutting off transportation for the time being. You and Selena spent quite a lot of time together. I happened to pass by a residential gate and saw 2 familiar figures walking out arm in arm. From my car, I watched as the 2 walked by. The dashcam recorded everything, and Selena's belly was visibly showing signs of pregnancy. After the meteor disaster, daytime temperatures gradually rose, causing a surge in the city's electricity consumption. However, most of the country's nuclear power plants were largely destroyed during the catastrophe, leaving the coal-fired power plants on the city's outskirts unable to meet the daytime air conditioning demand. Fortunately, the government issued orders to halt work and school operations, reducing daytime power consumption. Businesses operated night shifts to maintain basic material supplies for the population. Even so, There are still areas that experience frequent power outages at night. I remember in my previous life, the daytime high was only about 40 degrees, with nights around 30 degrees. Apart from half a year without a single drop of rain, severe drought caused significant crop reductions, but there weren't many human casualties. But now, daytime highs exceed 60 degrees, making it impossible to go outside during the day. And crucially, nighttime outdoor temperatures reach 43 degrees. Has the difficulty of this apocalypse been adjusted to hell level because of my rebirth? I remember in the previous life, the total accidental deaths in Dragon Country during the 6-month drought following the meteor disaster amounted to 17,580 people, but now people are dying every day, with the daily total already exceeding 3,000. The government initially reported the death toll online, but after 3 months, they stopped. The nation no longer dared to release the death count, the number was too large, and the government feared it would cause panic. Since last seeing Eamon and Selena, I recalled that apartment Selena owned. It turned out to be their secret rendezvous spot. In my past life, I never suspected Selena of infidelity, but I always disliked and distrusted Eamon, but I still gave my all for Cressida's family in this lifetime. In this life, I won't bother with Cressida's family anymore. But I definitely won't let that scumbag couple Eamon and Selena off. Since you're still together, I'll help you out, locking you together for this lifetime. In my past life, I managed to infiltrate the degenerates' gathering spot multiple times. A residential area like this, with incomplete surveillance due to power shortages, can't stop me from sneaking in. I've been to Selena's apartment twice in my past life. I still remember the electronic door lock code, surprisingly, in this life. Her code is the same as before, saving me a lot of trouble. I installed surveillance cameras in Selena's house and hid in the car outside. The temperature hasn't spiked yet after the meteor catastrophe, but these past 2 days it's reached 38 degrees Celsius during daytime and still 30 degrees Celsius by evening, unbearable without air conditioning. I thought I'd have to wait several more days. But Eamon and Selena actually came back again. The two were getting really wild. So I went ahead and uploaded their video through proxy servers to several major websites. I doubt they'll be getting any sleep for the rest of the night. I'm heading back to rest at the Gadishan Civil Defense Shelter. I've repaired the main gate there, though the mechanism is a bit clunky. My physique has been enhanced by the spiritual spring water, those medicinal herb seeds. After being modified by the spiritual spring water in the planting space for dozens of generations, have evolved into spiritual herbs. Matured spiritual herbs can revive the dead, and improving physique or boosting strength is just a trivial matter now. Maddox was abruptly awakened by a call from Vera's family at dawn, calling off the engagement. The head of Vera's family bluntly stated that Eamon had behaved improperly. Despite having a fiancé, he was keeping a mistress outside, who was even pregnant. Such a person was unacceptable to Vera's family, Maddox pleaded desperately. But there was no way around it. He needed Vera's family's resources to survive the crisis. The meteor disaster struck indiscriminately, affecting everyone. Now, with volcanoes erupting in many places, it's fortunate that Dragon Country is vast and resource-rich. Despite the meteor disaster and volcanic eruptions, most regions remain intact. Finally, seeing that Vera's family had remained unmoved, Maddox had no choice but to propose his eldest son, Cressida, who had just returned from abroad. He suggested keeping the marriage alliance between the two families by having his eldest son take over the engagement. Vera's family also needs this marriage alliance to conceal their purpose of withdrawing from the capital. The death of the patriarch has left Vera's family's position in the capital precarious, and the head of Vera's family is aware of part of the truth behind the future weather predictions and this meteor disaster. Vera's family intends to withdraw from the capital, a place of trouble. Coincidentally, they own an old estate at the foot of the Gada Mountains, and their direct lineage plans to use the marriage as a pretext to retreat there. Eamon was awakened by Maddox's phone call in the middle of the night and returned home. At this point, Eamon was still unaware of what had happened, and his driver hadn't had time to check his phone. As soon as Eamon arrived home, Maddox beat him with a disciplinary cane until he was rolling on the ground. It wasn't until his stepmother Ember intervened and stopped Maddox that Eamon was spared from being severely injured by the enraged Maddox. Stepmother Ember was married into the family after my mother's death. She is Eamon's biological mother and essentially a mistress who rose to power. It was only then that Eamon learned his affair with Selena had been exposed online, with his words and deeds spreading like wildfire across the internet. Currently, Cressida's family has no choice but to seek a life-saving marriage alliance with Vera's family. Since Eamon can no longer marry into Vera's family, they must marry Selena instead to utilize her family's resources as a temporary lifeline, then retrieve Cressida and arrange her marriage to Vera. I'm currently inside the Gada Mountain Civil Air Defense Fortification, staring at 6 beautiful young female college students with a troubled expression. After finishing some business near Selena's residential area, I was driving back to Gata Mountain when I encountered a pretty girl asking for help while passing through a village. At first I thought it might be a honey trap, so after getting out of the car I carefully scanned the surroundings. Only after confirming no one else was around did I start questioning her. Turns out this girl named Ophelia is a student at C University. She and her twin sister Alicia were tricked into taking nude photos after borrowing campus loans, then kidnapped and brought here to be trafficked abroad for a high price. Fortunately, to ensure a good selling price, these human traffickers didn't violate their bodies. With the help of her sisters, Ophelia managed to escape and seek assistance. Luckily they encountered me, even if we called the police here. The fastest response time from the security station would be 40 minutes. By the time security officers arrived, these traffickers would have already moved their victims. I pretended to fetch a crossbow, an expandable baton, and a high-power flashlight with a stun device from the car, actually from my dimensional space. Lead the way. I'll help you rescue them. Ophelia looked much more confident seeing the crossbow in my hand and led me back the way we came. This girl's memory is impressive. She didn't lose her way even in pitch darkness. Truly worthy of a college student. There were 6 traffickers in total, 2 women and 4 men. I infiltrated alone and easily tipped them all out without even a scream. I temporarily stored the bodies in my spatial storage to deal with later. To my surprise, the space could actually crush the corpses and convert them into life energy. What a perfect tool for disposing of evidence. I rescued 6 girls and brought them back to my place in an off-road pickup truck. The problem is that schools are closed now, transportation isn't very convenient, and most importantly, we can't reach any of their family members. Their hometowns were all in the impact zones of the meteor disaster, so these girls can't be sent back. What a hassle. What's more concerning is how these girls look at me, especially the twin sisters Ophelia and Alicia. Their gazes are practically dripping with something. Fortunately, the civil defense shelter has plenty of space with many partition rooms, and my dimensional storage is fully stocked with supplies. It's just a matter of setting up some bunk beds, matching furniture, bedding, and clothes. After the 6 girls finished showering in the bathroom, I helped arrange 3 rooms for them, with 2-person setups similar to their dormitory, apart from Selena's family sisters. The other 4 girls are named Rosalie, Marina, Isolde, and Lyra. All 6 girls are under 20 years old. These traffickers really handpicked them carefully. Surprisingly, Isolde and Lyra are quite skilled at cooking. Under my guidance, they learned to use the outdoor camping stove and voluntarily took on the cooking duties, and so, my apocalypse base gained 6 new members. Maddox finally found his way outside the civil air defense shelter. The roads here were so rough that even the Maybach felt like it was falling apart. He felt quite unwell when stepping out of the car, but upon seeing me come out alone, he still flashed that hypocritical smile. In my previous life, I had just returned to the country when I was deceived by this very same fake smile, leading to being drugged with spiked wine at the family banquet that night and inexplicably ending up in bed with Selena. In the end, these people left me with nothing, not even bones to pick. Of course I came to take you home, sorry. Cressida died in the meteor disaster abroad. Aren't you standing right in front of me perfectly fine? As a member of Cressida's family, you must share the family's burdens. You must take on the role of Cressida's family's eldest son and Marion Tavera's family. What? Marion Tavera's family? I originally thought Maddox wanted me to be Eamon's fall guy, but now it seems like it's the aftermath of me exposing Eamon's scandal to the whole world. Marrying Vera wasn't a loss for me. She's a well-bred lady with the demeanor of a matriarch. Though she died in Shangjing during that heavy rain back then, I thought about it. The social order here hasn't collapsed yet, so I'll humor Maddox for now. But one thing's certain, I won't be returning to live with Cressida's family, but scheduling the wedding in just 3 days seems too rushed. I heard it was Vera's family's idea, but I don't recall this happening in my previous life. Did my rebirth change something? But considering the fate of those 6 girls who didn't meet me would likely have been a tragic death, at least now things have changed. It makes sense that Vera's family made a different decision, left the satellite phone number with Maddox. Recently, satellite signals have been unstable during certain periods. The meteor disaster destroyed many satellites in orbit. Fortunately, Dragon Country has launched numerous new satellites, barely maintaining communication capabilities. With temperatures rising day by day, after calming the 6 girls at home, I drove alone to the city to get the marriage certificate and attend the wedding. At the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance, I met Vera. Vera's family arrived by helicopter. Under the pretext of Vera's wedding, all core members of Vera's family came to the old mansion, with their large amounts of gold, supplies, and dowry mixed together and transported there. Vera's family is highly efficient. completing everything in just 3 days. The marriage registration with Vera went smoothly. Surprisingly, Vera didn't express any dissatisfaction towards me, only making me sign a marriage cooperation agreement. I realized at once it was a sham marriage. After marriage, both parties live their own lives without interference. This I can accept. Premarital assets are managed separately, with the marriage lasting for 3 years. I have no issue with the first part. But I know full well that after 3 years these agreements can be torn up at will without any consequences, since the government has already collapsed. Still, I insist on adding a clause: the marriage shall last for 3 years, after which the agreement automatically becomes void and the marriage is dissolved. Signing this agreement may seem binding on me, but I know that within a year at most, this agreement won't even be worth as much as toilet paper. That night's wedding was only attended by the two families and some friends. It wasn't lively, but both Cressida's family and Vera's family completed their underground dealings. The Cressida group was saved, and Vera's family completed their entire migration, quickly integrating here with the help of the local power. Cressida's family, Vera and I stayed in a hotel room for one night. She slept on the bed while I took the sofa. The next day we went our separate ways. I rushed home to check on the 6 girls to make sure nothing had happened. Fortunately, all was peaceful, and the crossbows I left for them hadn't been touched. The days grew increasingly hotter, but within the mountain I still felt a hint of coolness. There was a clear spring waterfall in the civil air defense structure, bringing a refreshing chill to the cave, while photovoltaic power generation efficiency has improved significantly. The lifespan of photovoltaic glass has also shortened considerably under high temperatures. However, there's still plenty of space available, and this batch only needs to last me half a year anyway. Cressida's family Eamon and Selena's wedding was also held, as Selena's pregnancy couldn't be hidden anymore. Besides, Selena's family isn't one to be trifled with either, and they've been fueling the online uproar with their own actions. Maddox got so worked up by my attitude that his blood pressure rose, and combined with the Eamon situation, the scorching weather completely defeated him, leaving him ill. These days, hospital medical resources are extremely tight. Fortunately, Cressida's family has their own private doctor, and Maddox's condition was brought under control. However, his wife Ember and the butler Vigo are secretly plotting something. However, I captured all of this on the surveillance system, coincidentally. I went to the black market in the evening to trade food for some valuable resources and encountered 2 servants from Cressida's family exchanging goods. They were chatting about recent events in Cressida's family as they walked. I listened nearby, and the 2 didn't recognize me. After all, I'd been sent abroad for 5 years and had grown up quite a bit. Don't underestimate the gossiping skills of servants. They often witness their master's private affairs. Vigo and Ember's scandalous news was their favorite topic. Maddox falling ill during this period didn't happen in the previous life. While Maddox did have hypertension in the past life, it wasn't severe. It suddenly occurred to me that in the previous life, wasn't Ember involved with Vigo? In the previous life, I had noticed something between Ember and Vigo during those 3 months of heavy rain, but didn't pay much attention at the time. Now thinking back, those 2 probably got together long ago. I didn't return to the mountain that evening, instead going to Cressida's family. Recently, my physique has been growing stronger under the influence of the spiritual spring water, making it effortless to climb walls and install surveillance systems. But what we captured tonight is absolutely explosive. Ember and Vigo were actually first loves. And that Eamon turns out to be Vigo's son. Ember was already with Vigo when she was the other woman. My disappearance back then was orchestrated by this despicable pair, something I didn't know in my past life. Who would have thought this Maddox treated his own son like trash, raising his rival's son while treating him like gold, completely oblivious to the betrayal under his own roof. What? My mother's death back then wasn't an accident, it was actually caused by slow-acting poison administered by this vile couple. No, I have to kill these 2 scumbags, but it's better to expose this first. The temperature is getting higher, everyone rests during the day, and the internet has become people's spiritual pillar, but there aren't many good news online. A video ignited the vast bored netizens. These guys called Ember and Vigo are too despicable, even short dramas wouldn't dare to film such plots. The incident where Ember and Vigo's child seized another's nest, took someone else's place, and sent the biological son to an orphanage has been spreading everywhere online. Ember and Vigo didn't find out until the 3rd day, and only realized when they noticed the strange looks from their house servants and inquired about it. This video sowed distrust between Ember and Vigo, but the first instinct was to suppress the information, but it was too late. Maddox had already woken up and arranged for a paternity test, which now confirmed Eamon wasn't his biological son but rather Vigo's. Maddox's rage triggered another hypertensive episode, but upon regaining consciousness, He immediately had his assistant and lawyer start making arrangements. None of this concerned me. I began capturing wild beasts in the mountains to raise in my spatial pens. They'd either evolve into savage creatures or perish, and savage beast meat isn't exactly a delicacy. Ordinary people who eat mutant beast meat have a high chance of becoming degenerates, but there's also a possibility of evolving. Each consumption is essentially a gamble. In my previous life, post-apocalyptic bases were researching the evolution effects of mutant beast meat, but no results had been achieved by the time I reincarnated. Seeing me sleep during the day and disappear at night, the girls offered to help with whatever I was doing. I figured it was a good idea. Having self-defense skills would be valuable when the apocalypse comes. 3 months passed like this. The 6 girls became capable of hunting independently, and their physiques had been enhanced by the spiritual spring water I provided. They interpreted my space as a spatial storage superpower, which also explained why I could produce various supplies. The 6 women also promised not to reveal my secret. After sharing the secret with me, our relationship grew closer, and during hunts we became comrades who could trust each other with our backs. Maddox came to see me once. He killed Ember and Vigo one after another, and Eamon was also expelled from Cressida's family. Maddox came to ask me to return home. I refused and instead demanded my mother's ashes, as I wanted to relocate her grave. Maddox certainly didn't agree either, so we reached a stalemate. Maddox also knew I didn't like him. Just think, not only did he raise his love rival's son, but he also left his own biological son, whom he had finally found, abroad. He brought all this upon himself. I learned about Ember and Vigo's deaths without much reaction, but when I heard Eamon was merely expelled from Cressida's family and that he and Selena were living quite happily together, I couldn't accept it. But the time isn't right yet. I want them to taste the bitterness of doomsday first. In this life without me, I'll see if the 2 of them can still survive. After several months, Vera suddenly called me via satellite phone. I had almost forgotten about this wife by contract, anyway. Apart from a soon-to-be void marriage certificate and a wedding ceremony, we're still 2 strangers. As for Vera's phone call, it was actually because her parents recently needed to discuss with Maddox about establishing an alliance between the 2 families to combat the increasingly rampant bandits. That's when they thought of me, their son-in-law, only to find out the couple was separated. Plus, Cressida's family has had quite a few incidents recently, which more or less affected Vera's family too, so they had Vera make a call to check the situation. Vera called Maddox first, and Maddox hoped Vera could persuade me to return home, making it easier to negotiate matters between Cressida's family and Vera's family. My satellite phone number was also provided by Maddox, including the place I live, which was suggested by Maddox. The prolonged high temperatures following this meteor disaster have made it impossible for the country to organize effective material support. Vera's family migrated from Shangjing, and their material security here still requires coordination with Cressida's family. Cressida's family is considered a major clan in this region, but the recent internal strife between Maddox and Vigo has taken a heavy toll, leaving Cressida's family not what it once was. Other families are beginning to stir with ambition. However, a starved camel is still bigger than a horse. Cressida's family can maintain balance for now, but with heavy rains approaching, the next 3 months will be tough. That said, I'm not worried about Cressida's family at all. Vera's family's land is at a high elevation, unaffected by the floods. In the scorching heat, Cressida's family has gradually stockpiled supplies in elevated warehouses near their estate for easy access. That's how it was in the previous life, but Eamon and Selena's location in Selena's family wasn't ideal. Whether they could withstand the storm remained uncertain. We've made all necessary preparations for the storm. The solar battery packs are fully charged, and I've also stored a large number of fully charged lithium battery packs in the civil defense warehouse. With the power usage during the storm period and the fuel-powered generator, there should be no problem. The day before the storm, Vera arrived at my civil defense shelter with her assistant Xiaomei. I had the road repaved with concrete by hired workers, making it much easier for vehicles to pass. I've also fixed the guard post outside the civil air defense facility, installed the main gate, and now the facility resembles a small fortress, though no one is aware of the changes on the mountain. Besides, the construction workers I hired weren't locals. They left as soon as the job was done. Vera was startled when she arrived, seeing such a fortress on the mountain, but her displeasure was evident when she noticed the 6 girls behind me. I didn't care whether Vera was happy or not. After all, the marriage agreement stipulated non-interference in each other's lives. What brings you to me? I want you to help discuss with your father about Vera's family and Vera's family joining forces to deal with this disastrous year, with frequent robberies and thefts lately. Our Vera's family only has your Cressida's family as a trustworthy ally here. You should talk to Maddox about this matter. Coming to me is useless. I'm just an insignificant person in Cressida's family, but your father said he would agree to any condition as long as you return home, so you're here to speak for that old bastard. You might as well leave now. Tell Maddox this, give me back my mother's ashes, and we'll talk. Everything else is off the table. I'm never going back to Cressida's family. Vera couldn't just leave with her assistant Xiaomei like that, so she stayed in the civil defense shelter. There was no choice. If I didn't go back, she wouldn't be able to complete her mission. That night, the sweltering heat gave way to cooler air, but soon after, rain began to fall. By then, after half a year of relentless high temperatures, most of the plants on the ground had already died, and the few survivors were barely clinging to life. Outdoor crops had been largely destroyed by natural disasters, leaving only some indoor hydroponically grown fruits and vegetables to supply the market, but these were all premium-priced goods. Otherwise, the profits wouldn't even cover the energy costs of running the factory's air conditioning. The rain never stopped once it started, as if the sky had opened a hole and kept pouring water endlessly. The accumulated water on the ground quickly reached knee height, submerging many low-lying areas. The steam from the magma erupting from the ground mixed with the rainwater, creating countless fog-covered zones. The heavy rain continued for 3 straight days. And I knew it would last for 3 months. The civil air defense shelter, apart from the increased humidity in the air, had no leaks in the main structure. The surrounding slopes had also been reinforced with concrete and mesh netting by me, preventing any soil erosion. However, many areas downhill were flooded. Vera's family's old house was in a bad location and was now submerged. But Vera's family had been evacuated by Maddox. I received a call from Maddox, instructing me to take good care of Vera. Vera only discovered the benefits of this shabby place after living in the civil air defense shelter for 2 days. The temperature inside was very comfortable, the air conditioning energy consumption was stable, and the currently activated dehumidification worked exceptionally well, making it very cozy. However, Arwen came over with a tablet, and a group of people arrived outside the newly repaired outer gate. It turned out to be Eamon and Selena, members of Selena's family. Selena's family was destroyed by a mountain flood and mudslide. They were refugees fleeing here. But what's the deal with you pointing guns at me to seize my civil air defense shelter? Just a few small handguns. Is that it? Who doesn't have guns? The girls' repeating crossbows can already hit every target, and I've issued M16s to everyone. Vera was startled to see me and the 6 women all dressed in combat gear, wearing bulletproof vests and multifunctional helmets. Armed to the teeth with foreign equipment, covered with raincoats, I led the team to the towers on either side of the front gate, watching Eamon below, barely holding an umbrella and drenched like a drowned rat. I couldn't help but laugh. Where did he get the confidence that I'd take him in? Eamon initially tried to take advantage of my ignorance, but flew into a rage when exposed and started shooting at me with his pistol, prompting 6 girls to return fire. The M16's overwhelming firepower and precise shooting position scared Eamon into hiding in his car, which quickly retreated beyond firing range. In the following days, Eamon incited disaster victims from the foot of the mountain to cause trouble, but they were all dispersed by heavy rain and gunfire. This incident led to a fierce argument between me and Vera, who has a bleeding heart, along with her assistant. But considering she's still my nominal wife, I didn't kick her out. Continuous heavy rains destroyed all urban supplies, relief efforts were impossible to carry out, the government collapsed, and society fell into a state of disorder. Inside and outside the civil air defense shelter were 2 different worlds. Eamon gathered a group to raid Cressida's family for resources but was repelled by the bodyguards of both Cressida's family and Vera's family. Then they came to cause trouble for me but were driven back by the 2 squad machine guns I set up. Fortunately, the girls just wanted to scare them. For 3 months of torrential rain, we never ventured beyond the first gate outside the civil air defense facility. Both Cressida's family and Vera's family held their ground. During these 3 months, Eamon lost an eye, and Selena died in childbirth. Neither mother nor child survived. Eamon blamed all of this on me, but I paid him no mind. The rain finally stopped, and the government resumed operations. Eamon went to report me, intending to have the government's enforcement team arrest me, just as Eamon gleefully believed my execution was imminent after the team's deployment. The city, which had just regained some order, fell into chaos again. Degenerates from unknown origins began attacking ordinary people en masse, and those who were attacked would rise again 30 minutes after death, degenerating into degenerates themselves and joining the assault. Eamon had just left the government building when a degenerate bit into his artery. However, Eamon met a grimmer fate. Several degenerates devoured him, leaving only scattered bones. Even after 30 minutes, when his brain began to degenerate, there wasn't enough muscle left to control his skeletal remains, until fleeing crowds trampled them into pulp. The emergence of leader among the degenerates can't be far off. Cressida's family estate was also destroyed from within. And those who escaped from Cressida's family and Vera's family were overwhelmed by the fleeing refugees. In the end, no one managed to reach my civil defense shelter. I appeared outside the land vehicle and heavy weaponry depot of a nearby military district with my twin sisters, planning to take advantage of the chaos and make one last haul before complete societal collapse. To solve my lack of heavy firepower and secure a foothold in this post-apocalyptic world, what are you here for? Story 2. When the apocalypse came, the city was besieged by zombies. My husband's family forced me to go out to find supplies. As the zombies lunged at me, they locked the doors tightly and left me to die. I was surrounded and bitten by a horde of zombies, and the intense pain jolted me awake. I was reborn, May 21st, 2036. I was reborn a week before the zombie outbreak. The pain of being bitten by zombies felt so real that my arm still hurts now. Looking around the home I had lived in for many years, I quietly made up my mind. In my previous life, when the apocalyptic heat burst upon us unprepared, we barely survived a week on the scant food we had at home. After days of hunger, my husband, mother-in-law, and father-in-law pushed me out of the door to join the large group searching for supplies. I didn't expect that on our return, zombies suddenly attacked us. I ran towards home with all my might, carrying the supplies. I could have survived. The zombies were still far from me. If only they had opened the door, I definitely could have lived. But to my despair, no matter how much I screamed, they didn't open the door, until I was overwhelmed by countless zombies. The family I had served diligently, who I thought loved me as well, unhesitatingly threw me out at the moment of danger, since fate has given me a second chance. I am determined to change my ending. The phone rang, and to my disgust, it was my husband. Boyce, calling. Remembering his unbearable attitude during the apocalypse made me feel sick. I don't know if they survived after my death, but at this moment, I swore to make their lives miserable in this apocalypse. I answered the call without speaking. Boyce greasily called me honey. Mom and Dad said they miss you. I have a business trip these days. Why don't you let them stay with you at our house? It was the same in my past life. My parents died in an accident during my college years. The party at fault gave me a large settlement and then disappeared. Boyce appeared during that time, being considerate and caring, always putting me first. After I moved into his family's home, I found his parents as wonderful as him, especially kind to me. They gave me the love of parents again after I had lost my own. No, I suspect he was after the settlement money. He took care of me because he didn't know where I had stored the settlement money. Fortunately, the apocalypse came before they could find out. Otherwise, they would have cheated me out of the money sooner or later. Like my previous life, I agreed to Boyce's request. I hung up eagerly and opened my mobile banking app. The party responsible for my parents' accident had settled me with 3 million yuan, and with the money I had saved over the years, I had a total of 34 million yuan. I thought for a moment. I was living next to an elementary school in a house bought for the convenience of future children's schooling. A house in a school district, noisy and crowded, was clearly not a good place to hide. Moreover, staying with his family, I would certainly end up worse than in my previous life. I quickly contacted a real estate agent on 58com, asking for a house in the suburbs, somewhere quiet with fewer people and high security. The agent was quick and called to say we could view a house that afternoon. I packed up casually and went downstairs to eat. I still remembered the hunger from my past life. Just as I went downstairs, I saw our local bakery had just made fresh hand-grabbed pancakes. I happily bought 20 yuan worth and took them to my favorite noodle shop. I ordered all the noodles I was craving. The familiar aroma exploded in my mouth and I cried. I really cried. They were so delicious. After stuffing myself full, I patted my stomach and rushed to the meeting spot I had arranged with the real estate agent. I viewed several houses that afternoon, and one particularly caught my heart. Located on the very edge of the suburbs, not only was the house backed by a mountain, it was completely secluded. This new development was inhabited by the wealthy and influential, with top-notch security measures in place. The original owner, who had been living well, suddenly put it up for sale at a low price, claiming he needed to move abroad. I figured they had some insider information, perhaps even about the impending zombie outbreak. The villa had 3 stories, plus a basement. Behind the house was a small garden that merged with the mountain. The garden wall was over 10 meters high, practically enclosing the garden and the mountain together. I quickly finalized the contract with the owner, purchasing the house for 39 million. The owner seemed eager to move abroad too. As the agent called me that evening to say the house was ready for inspection, when I got home, my in-laws had already prepared dinner. I looked at the table full of my favorite dishes, but for the first time, I felt no gratitude. Seeing my poor mood, my in-laws thought something was wrong at work and comforted me briefly without prying too much. I ate several bowls of rice before I put down my chopsticks. My mother-in-law, surprised, looked at me and said, "Sophia, You have such a good appetite today, could it be? I knew what she was implying, but I hadn't gotten pregnant in my previous life, and it wasn't possible in this one either. Moreover, it had been a long time since I had been intimate with boys, so pregnancy was definitely out of the question. After briefly engaging with my in-laws, I found an excuse to retreat to my room. Once inside, I started making a list. With only 6 days until the zombie outbreak, I needed to hurry with the preparations. The next morning, I got up early while my in-laws were still asleep and quietly left the house. I went to the building materials market and paid a hefty sum to hire workers to reinforce my doors and windows as quickly as possible. Not only that, but I also bought 100 solar panels, power banks, a silent generator, a refrigerator, and more. I also purchased 100 boxes of water purifiers in case the water supply was cut off and we ran out of stored water, allowing us to purify rainwater. I then visited various markets and bought 100 kilograms each of pork, beef, lamb, chicken, 100 bags of rice, 100 bags of flour, 100 bags of frozen dumplings, 100 bags of salt, 100 bottles of soy sauce, 50 boxes of instant noodles, and 50 boxes of ready-to-eat meals as emergency supplies. I also visited a flower and bird market to buy some seeds. I planned to plant some vegetables and fruits in my home garden to ensure we wouldn't lack vitamins during the apocalypse. Some people wondered why I was buying so much food, but I simply told them I was stocking up to open a small supermarket. I had the goods delivered to different neighborhoods and then rented a large truck to transport the supplies myself. The affluent neighborhood was indeed aware, as a few other homes were also being renovated. Without resting for long, I drove to a supermarket in the neighboring city and bought frozen food. My favorite snacks: instant noodles, sanitary pads, clothes, skincare products, shampoo, shower gel, toilet paper, and cleaning cloths. I bought 100 cases each of Coca-Cola and Sprite, along with most of the common beverages available. I nearly cleared out everything visible on the shelves. People nearby saw me pushing cart after cart of items and curiously came up to ask. I had to tell them that all these supplies were for a poverty-stricken mountain area. Thankfully, no one asked too many questions when I arranged for the delivery person to drop off the goods not far from the highway exit. It took me several trips to transport all the supplies back home. My in-laws called in the late afternoon, and I made the excuse that I had to work overtime and would be home late. After organizing the supplies in the villa for a while, I finally drove home. My in-laws didn't know what time I would arrive, so they chatted carelessly at home. I should really be thankful for the poor sound insulation in our old neighborhood. It allowed me to overhear my in-laws' long unheard true feelings. I don't know where all her money has gone. After all these years, there's still no sign of a child. Haven't we taken good care of her for several years? In a few days, I'll take her to the hospital to check. If it's a physical issue preventing pregnancy, we need to find another option for our son. It turns out they are eagerly looking to find a mistress for their son. I deliberately waited a bit longer at the door, entering only when the room fell silent. After entering the house, I wasn't in a hurry. After dinner, I began packing my luggage. Mom and Dad, there's a project issue at work, and I need to go on a business trip for a while. If you don't want to stay in the city, feel free to go back to the countryside. There's no need to make a special trip just for me. I packed several suitcases. This business trip might take a while. I'll return after finishing my tasks. Without waiting for their response, I grabbed my suitcase and hurried off. After stuffing the luggage into the trunk, I drove to the snack street. From one end of the street to the other, I bought all the snacks I wanted. I also purchased a cup of milk tea from each different brand. After a good meal at home, I started planning for the next day, when the apocalypse first began. It was just a bit hot, but there was still electricity at home, so it wasn't unbearable with the air conditioning on. But within a few days, the temperature kept rising, and on the day I went out for supplies, it reached 52 degrees Celsius. I don't know what the future holds, but extreme heat is definitely certain. While thinking, I ordered a few more air conditioners and installed them all in the living room. I welded iron nets over the windows from the second to the third floor and filled them with cement, leaving only a small, inconspicuous window for observation. The supplies weren't enough, so I searched on Xiaohongshu for various instant foods and bought several boxes. I practically bought out several brands of beverages and alcohol. I called different bottled water companies and ordered 100 barrels from each. There are 5 days left until the apocalypse erupts. After reinforcing the doors and windows, I had workers install an electric fence on the main gate to prevent anyone from climbing over. After the workers left, I ordered 200 boxes of cooling patches to cope with the extreme heat. Oh, and I still needed to buy medicine, since we won't be able to consume much fruit and vegetables during the apocalypse. I visited several pharmacies and bought a trunk full of medicine. I also went to the equipment market and bought a variety of self-defense tools including stun guns, baseball bats, and triangular knives. After returning home, I contacted the largest fruit and vegetable producer in the city and ordered a batch of perishable fruits and vegetables. Once the supplies arrived, I moved everything to the basement. With 3 days left until the zombie outbreak, I had almost prepared all the supplies and took the opportunity to return to my city home. As expected, my in-laws listened to me and returned to the countryside, according to my memory from my previous life. Boyce is due back from his business trip tomorrow. I installed dozens of hidden cameras in various places around the house. Before leaving, I took all the food stored in the fridge. Knowing Boyce's nature, he would definitely order takeout if possible. Even if the fridge was completely empty, he wouldn't notice. After returning from his business trip, Boyce called me immediately. "Honey, when are you coming back?" I was frying some cold noodles while talking to him on the phone. "It will take a while longer. This matter is quite troublesome." "All right, honey, I'll wait for you at home." After hanging up, I was still basking in Boyce's affection. He seemed to really love me. Was he really that scared in his past life? While thinking this, I checked the home surveillance system, considering whether to send some supplies home. Unexpectedly, my in-laws had brought another girl home. They were warmly introducing her to Boyce, even encouraging them to hold hands to foster a relationship. It looked like they had found a mistress. I thought Boyce would refuse, but to my surprise, he took the girl's hand willingly. It was utterly disgusting. I slapped myself hard, trying to knock some sense into my infatuated brain. It was the day before the zombie outbreak. I went out to buy some supplies, mainly stocking up on candies and such, in case I ended up with nothing else and had to rely on sugar to stave off hunger. In the afternoon, I raided a snack street, loading up a car with snacks and buying some raw materials outright. Then, the zombie outbreak began. As the news exploded on my phone's hot search, I knew the moment had arrived. At the subway station, a man carrying a briefcase suddenly collapsed. As bystanders gathered around him, he suddenly lunged, biting the neck of the person closest to him. In no time, it spread from 1 to 10, then 10 to 100. People desperately tried to flee, but none were spared. The subway station was overrun. The zombies were as strong as in the past life. It didn't take half a day for the whole city to fall. For lunch, I made myself some dumplings and, out of boredom, turned on the camera to see what Boyce was up to. I hadn't expected to witness such an eyesore. The next second, as if Boyce had eyes on the back of his head, he looked directly at the camera. He quickly walked to the bedside, reached for the camera, and took it down. The screen went black instantly. I switched to another camera in the room to see what Boyce was up to. He looked suspiciously at the camera, then picked up the phone next to the table. Sure enough, my phone rang the next second. "What's going on? Why are there cameras installed at home?" Boyce's voice was no longer gentle but rather questioning. I wanted to install them at home before I went on my trip and never got around to connecting them to the network. I watched as Boyce sighed in relief on the screen and continued. "What's up? Why did you suddenly call me?" Boyce's tone was back to normal. "It seems like there's been a zombie outbreak outside. Has your area fallen? Do you have supplies?" I softly responded. "I'm trapped in a hotel, but luckily there's enough supply storage here to last a few months." Boyce didn't say much, and I continued to inquire. "How about at home? Do you still have plenty of supplies?" "It's okay. My parents visited yesterday and brought some local products. We should be able to hold out for a while, hopefully." I didn't want to listen to Boyce ramble on, so I agreed with a few words and then hung up. The power and internet were still running, so I could keep up with the latest news online. Around the same time, the city we lived in, along with several nearby cities, were completely overrun. The spread of the zombie outbreak was incredibly fast, taking just a day to spread across the nation. Other than cooking some tasty dishes for myself at home, I spent my free time on the second floor, peering through a telescope to observe the situation outside. The security measures in our residential area were extremely strict. Apart from the initial rush of cars when the outbreak began, I hadn't seen another living soul in the area. If I hadn't personally seen a few neighbors renovating their homes, I might have believed I was the only resident left. During the first week of the outbreak, the power went out. Luckily, I had charged all the power banks I bought ahead of time. As long as I used them sparingly, they should last for a few months. I had downloaded lots of TV shows, movies, and variety programs on my tablet that I'd wanted to watch but never had the time before. They became a source of entertainment in these chaotic times. I wasn't worried about electricity at home. The entire rooftop of the third floor was fitted with dozens of solar panels. Given the intense heat and sunlight outside, there was no concern about running out of power for showers or air conditioning. I had also stocked up on plenty of gas, so there was no worry about surviving without sunlight in the future. In the second week of the outbreak, we lost our internet connection. A national announcement was made, saying, We are doing everything we can to save our country, please be assured." After that, there was no more news. The disconnection made me feel an unprecedented sense of isolation. Previously, when I was bored, I could surf the internet, check social media, and life even seemed more fulfilling than when I was working. But now, I didn't even have anyone to talk to. Days passed uneventfully, and soon the entire downtown area was completely overrun, with no survivors, when the zombies couldn't find food. They began to move en masse towards the suburbs, having not eaten for weeks. Their movements were exceptionally slow. From a few scattered zombies, our neighborhood was now surrounded by a group. Zombies moved slowly during the day, but their speed picked up after sunset. From my observations, it might have been due to the extreme heat outside, which even the zombies seemed unable to withstand. The temperature outside was frighteningly hot, making it feel not so cool even with the air conditioning at its lowest setting. I had no choice but to move into the basement to sleep, where the ventilation system made it somewhat cooler. Days went by, and then one day, I suddenly received a call from Boyce. I glanced at my phone and saw that the internet was back. I hurried to the monitoring room to check the cameras, and saw Boyce and his family sitting solemnly on their couch. It was clear from their appearance that they had run out of food supplies. They looked terribly thin. "What's wrong?" I answered the call. Boyce, surprised, responded from behind the monitor screen. "Honey, are you all right? How are things over there?" I couldn't help but reply with a hint of joy. "I'm fine. This hotel not only has a professional kitchen but also a huge warehouse. There weren't many guests to begin with, so we have plenty of supplies." Seeing a flash of disappointment on Boyce's face on the other end of the call, he quickly changed the subject. "Honey, it's not so bad outside now. Would you risk bringing some supplies back? Mom and Dad miss you a lot. They've always treated you like their own daughter. You wouldn't want to make them sad, would you?" I readily agreed. "Sure, then I'll talk to the hotel manager, see if we can move the warehouse back home." Boyce, overjoyed, responded, "Really, honey? Of course not." I yelled at Boyce, "With resources so tight now, why would the manager, a complete stranger to me, agree to that? How could you possibly send me supplies? And aren't you the man of the house? How could you let me, a woman, go out to find supplies? Are you even a man? You're using our parents' morality to blackmail me. They may take care of me, but don't they have their own motives?" Boyce was dumbfounded by my scolding. "What do you mean?" I didn't bother explaining further and just hung up the phone. Later, Boyce called me several more times, but I ignored all his calls. Once the internet was back, everyone was frantically searching for supplies on various social media platforms without exception. Luckily, I had been given a second chance at life, an opportunity to turn back time. Unfortunately, I still belonged to a world at the apocalypse. During the first month of the zombie outbreak, the nation faced a water shutdown. If some families didn't have stored food, they could survive on water alone for a while, but with the water shut off, they really had nothing left. Just as I was gleefully putting fried chicken into the oven, an explosion suddenly sounded outside. I didn't have time to react and immediately ran to the second-floor window. Using a telescope, I observed the situation outside. A giant armored vehicle had arrived just outside our community, and more than a dozen strong men alighted from it. Armed with firearms, they opened fire on the zombies, headshotting them one by one. Soon, the noise ceased, and all the zombies surrounding our community were eradicated. They forcefully blew up the front gate of our community and drove in. A few men got out of the vehicle and started searching each home. I watched as they approached the house at the very edge of the community. That house had been renovated too. I remembered seeing them when I was delivering supplies, if I remember correctly. Their front door was definitely reinforced. These men looked experienced in looting supplies, quick and skilled. They quickly picked the lock, but upon pushing the door open, they were met with a wall sealed with concrete. Cursing loudly, they grabbed a box of explosives from their vehicle and threw it into the yard. The bomb exploded with a loud roar, but fortunately, the house's bulletproof glass was not seriously damaged. Seeing that their attack had failed, the men cursed and left. They began looting the next house, but the next family wasn't so lucky. The group quickly broke the lock and entered the house. Soon after, screams from a woman and gunshots were heard inside. A man ran out of the house, knocking on doors as he went, but within seconds, he was stabbed to death by someone who had chased after him. Looking at the man lying on the ground, I strangely felt he looked familiar. In a flash, I realized he seemed to be the local evening news anchor. A man known throughout City A. Perhaps he was successful, with a perfect family and career, but in this apocalyptic world, when faced with dire moral choices, none of that mattered anymore. The group settled into his house, probably because there were still a lot of supplies stored there. After they moved in, they never came out again. A month and a half after the zombie outbreak, infighting broke out among them. I was awakened from sleep by the sound of gunfire, looking out from the second floor. It was a firefight between two groups. One group had superior firepower, while the other was less equipped. After a brief skirmish, the group with stronger firepower narrowly won. I didn't know why they were fighting among themselves, but I guessed it was probably over the distribution of supplies. The food in the second household was likely all consumed, and the remaining group started moving to the next house. I'm glad I chose the innermost house when I bought my property. Though I knew the food would run out someday, eventually, they would search my home as well. All I could hope for was that they would keep fighting among themselves and all die before they found my house. When I fortified my house, I didn't fill the inner walls of the door with cement. I never imagined they would have weapons and explosives, but the inevitable day still came. That night, I was still asleep when I faintly heard the sound of the front gate being bombarded. The gate was sturdy, but it couldn't withstand continuous bombing. I sprang out of bed and grabbed the cold weapons I had purchased earlier, but how could I, a woman, stand a chance against a group of men? As I paced anxiously, a hole was blasted through the outer gate. Those people were actually trying to crawl through it. My legs shook with nerves as they breached the courtyard gate. Although the villa's main door was still intact, it was clear that it was only a matter of time before they broke through. My eyes then fell on the dozens of gas canisters I had bought earlier. What if I turned on the gas and lit it? The explosive power of the gas canisters was no less than their explosives. Utilizing the moonlight, I saw they were struggling to get through the hole. Their ammunition seemed to have run out, and at that moment, one man had managed to get his upper body through. But being too heavy, his belly got stuck in the hole. Without hesitation, I opened the door, knocked over the gas canisters, and turned on the valves, pushing them towards the courtyard gate. Having not been outside for a long time, the heat of the air outside was momentarily overwhelming. The men, seeing that a woman had opened the door, leered at me with sleazy gazes. He pushed harder to get through, but I didn't give him any chance. I pushed the gas canister in front of him, quickly ran back inside, and at the moment I closed the door, I lit my lighter and threw it towards him. I slammed the door shut, and sparks flew. The men's screams were muffled outside, and the heat rolled in waves. The explosion lasted for several minutes, and the fire spread rapidly, but since there was a man-made fountain just outside my house and no easily flammable materials around the neighborhood, the fire soon extinguished itself. I don't know if it was my imagination, but inside the house, I could faintly smell the scent of burning flesh. After the explosion killed that group, no one else entered our neighborhood. The zombies around our neighborhood were also dealt with by those men, and life seemed to return to its peaceful days. I never thought that the few gas canisters I had bought on a whim would end up saving me. Having not communicated with others for a long time, I could feel my language skills gradually deteriorating. The weather outside was getting hotter, reaching up to 62 degrees Celsius. In such weather, not just humans, even zombies would disintegrate. 3 months after the zombie outbreak, I received another call from Boyce. He was still alive. A long time ago, I stopped paying attention to his family's affairs, so I never checked the surveillance footage. I thought they wouldn't have lasted this long. When I checked the surveillance footage, I saw Boyce lying lifelessly on his bed. His parents were nowhere to be found in the entire house's surveillance. The woman had also disappeared. I hung up the phone call from Boyce and started reviewing the previous surveillance footage. 2 weeks ago, Boyce's parents were still visible on the cameras, unexpectedly, to allow their son to survive. Boyce's parents went out to gather supplies themselves. Clearly, they weren't just gathering supplies, they were feeding the zombies. Sure enough, they never returned. And the woman his parents had brought back, just like me in a past life, had disappeared. They were ruthlessly kicked out by his family. The woman's ordeal turned out to be exactly the same as mine in my past life. They had safely obtained the supplies, but unfortunately, at the last moment, zombies rushed over and they couldn't escape the disaster. I saw Boyce and his family with cold faces standing inside the house, ignoring the woman's cries and knocks on the door. They never opened the door until the woman was overwhelmed by the zombies. They never opened the door throughout. Unexpectedly, in this life, I avoided the accident of my past life, but another person suffered the same pain as I did before. I was so angry that I made a whole table of dishes, delicious and appealing. I then took photos and sent them to Boyce. I saw Boyce instantly sit up in the surveillance video, desperately sending me voice messages. "Honey, what do you mean? What else could I mean, but to show you? Looks delicious, doesn't it? I'm starting without you." Boyce drooled over the photo. He called me several times, but I ignored him, until my phone shut down automatically from his incessant calling. He was jumping and yelling, quickly running out of energy. I continued to share 3 meals a day with Boyce without fail, until he was trembling and crying on the sofa. I watched him without feeling much inside. I just called him. "You know what? You owe me all this." Boyce did not remember what happened in the past life. He was still clueless. I didn't want to bring up his past life's issues. After all, he knew nothing in this life. I then sent him the surveillance footage of him and that woman in bed. You rung me first, didn't you? Boyce fell silent, completely stunned, sitting on the sofa. I'm sorry. What's the use of being sorry? There were too many things you've done wrong to me. I hung up the phone and deleted the surveillance footage from the computer. From now on, Boyce's affairs have nothing to do with me anymore. 3 months after the apocalypse broke out, I thought I would just live out my life quietly. Unexpectedly, just after I finished making dinner, a drone flew over from next door. There was a white plastic bag hanging from the drone. I thought about it for a long time before deciding to bring it inside. I carefully opened the door. The outside temperature was so high that as soon as I stretched my arm out, it got sunburned. Enduring the pain, I pulled my arm back in, opened the plastic package, and found a note inside. Hello, neighbor. I heard about your brave act of blowing up those villains, and I admire your courage. My grandmother's insulin for her diabetes has run out, and the supplies we had stocked are all consumed. I don't know if you still have this medicine, but please could you spare some for my grandmother's sake? I searched through the fridge in a mess. When I had stockpiled, I had almost bought up all the necessary medication from the pharmacy. I found several insulin vials in the fridge, which I didn't need, so I put them all in the plastic bag. I opened the door and placed the drone on the grass, and soon someone controlled it to fly back. A while later, the drone flew back again. This time the plastic bag had a lot of green vegetables. I brought the drone inside and saw the note. These are fresh vegetables my grandmother personally grew, just sprouted. If you need more, you can come to me. I live right next door. We have an artificial water cultivation greenhouse. Thinking of growing plants, I remembered I had some seeds at home, so I packed them all for the neighbor. Initially, I planned to grow vegetables in the garden, but I completely underestimated the scorching heat. Just stepping outside for a few seconds, the sun's rays would painfully sting my skin, let alone tilling the soil to plant vegetables. Later, I added my neighbor on Instagram, finding a companion to chat with during these apocalyptic times. 5 months after the apocalypse began, the government updated the system on their website. Dear citizens, we are soon expecting a wave of zombies. Safety zones have been established in every province and city. The journey to these safety zones might be tough, but we hope our people will trust the nation, which will always be here waiting for you. Below are the addresses of the established safety zones. Experts estimate that the first wave of zombies will erupt in half a month. We hope our citizens will arrive as soon as possible. The government will later carry out a large-scale sweep plan to eliminate most of the zombies. I quickly checked my phone for the nearest safety zone, and my heart sank. The closest one was hundreds of kilometers away, and I had no car prepared. The car in my garage could have its windows shattered by a zombie with a single punch. As I was panicking, my neighbor timely sent me a message. Do you want to go to the safety zone? We have a well-assembled car with high safety features. My grandmother is running out of insulin. We must head to the safety zone now. I only thought for a moment before deciding. Let's go. I quickly gathered supplies from home, packing all the food we could eat on the road into a backpack. My neighbor was ready quickly. We agreed to meet in the underground garage. That's when I realized my neighbor was a clean, well-mannered young man, and his grandmother was clearly a highly educated individual, both in conversation and attire. They were very comforting. We set off soon after, passing through cities and countryside. With hordes of zombies trailing behind our car, we dared not relax, pushing the accelerator to the floor and speeding onto the highway. Perhaps because the elevated roads were so high, there were almost no zombies on them, just a few who chased our car for a while before giving up. We headed north, and the air conditioning in the car was utterly useless in this extreme heat. I stuck all the cooling patches I had stored at home on my body, and when hungry, we gnawed on bread and steamed buns, which, with some pickles, had a unique flavor of their own. After 3 days and nights of driving, taking turns with my neighbor, we weren't too exhausted. We saw the light of victory. We finally arrived at the safety zone. Several soldiers were stationed by the walls of the safety zone, and people were checking each vehicle near the gate. After confirming that no one had turned into zombies, we were allowed in. I saw many people for the first time in a long while, though only a few were left. My neighbor and I were assigned to the same room. I shared a bed with his grandmother, and he slept on another bed. Here, all supplies had to be earned through labor. The more you worked, the more you received. The less you worked, the less you got. My grandmother and I applied for positions in logistics. Our daily tasks involved tracking the inventory in the warehouse and the number of people entering the city each day. My neighbor, a computer genius, was called away by senior officials to work on more confidential tasks. I watched as names were added to the roster, but never saw any familiar ones, relieving a weight off my shoulders. Soon, the day the experts predicted the zombie wave would strike arrived. We stood in front of the city wall, watching as a massive horde of zombies surged in one direction. The military ordered to open fire, and countless shells were fired into the midst of the zombies, until all the zombies were blown to pieces. After the zombie wave passed, the nation started a comprehensive sweep. Almost all able-bodied individuals joined in. Those with guns used them, those without took up machetes. The zombies were completely annihilated. In the first year of the outbreak, the nation developed a zombie vaccine. Every survivor in each region was vaccinated, so even if they accidentally encountered the virus, they wouldn't easily mutate. In the second year of the outbreak, the zombie epidemic was almost entirely under control worldwide, but our country suffered heavy losses. The population reduced from billions to just a few million. So many people died in this mutation. People began a home building plan. Everyone joined with great enthusiasm. I believe, starting today, our homeland will only get better.